My grandfather's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba, but it does have the unstoppable Pot of Greed. This card allows me to draw 2 cards from my deck. Wait, are we live?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the GDQ Hotfix. I am your host, Church and Sarge, and we are here with How to Train a Speedrunner. We have a very special show for you tonight, but before we get into that, just a few reminders. Frost Fatale's Game and Volunteer submissions will be open from November 2nd to the 14th. You can go to gamesdonequick.com for more information. If you missed out on any GDQ Hotfix shows, you can check out our archive of past runs and shows over at youtube.com/gamesdonequick. And if you're over there on YouTube, you can join us at twitch.tv/gamesdonequick. You can check out all of our live shows starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And as a reminder for everybody here on Twitch, we are funded in part by your subscriptions and your bits. So feel free, if you enjoy our content, if you can, consider subscribing to help support our future broadcasts. And we do have a new YouTube channel. It's called GDQ Sum of Best Segments. Sum is spelled S-U-M. And it's just a highlight channel. It has regular videos as well as our main, at the same time as our main channel, except it's small, digestible highlight reels instead of our main content. And now, for the show you've all been waiting for, tomorrow, as everybody is aware, is probably one of the most looked forward to days of the year. As we all know, tomorrow is the 25th anniversary of Bubsy 3D, and so we have Author Blues here to teach us the game. Auth, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I forgot to wear my Bubsy shirt. Also, I left all of my other Bubsy copies in the closet. I should have grabbed them to show. I've got one featured here for you, but I do not have all my other copies. I can go grab them if you need them.
We'll take your word for it. Do you have anything you'd like to say about the game before we jump into it?
Nope, I'm just sorry.
Just sorry in advance.
Yeah. It's Bubsy
All
3D.
right.
There's really I'm only allowed to apologize contractually and legally, so.
All right. Well, if you're ready, I think we're ready with the timer here. You can give us the countdown.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can start the countdown whenever. I'm going to start off by showing off a few little movement techniques. So we're talking about Bubsy 3D. The 2 categories for this game are any percent and 100%. The only difference between them is that the ending is very slightly different if you collect all the rocket parts in every single level. So all of the real levels, not the boss stages, but the real levels, have 2 rockets hidden in them. If you can find them, you get a different ending. That's the main difference. We're just going to be getting to the end as quickly as possible, and it turns out you can get to the end pretty quickly. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and start showing off these things. A lot of the tricks, I think with a lot of speedruns, what can be difficult sometimes is that every stage sort of has a different way to approach it, a different problem to solve. But with Bubsy 3D, it's really just learn one trick and you can apply it over and over, or at least a small number of tricks. And so the first thing I'm going to show off is how to climb walls in order to get out of bounds. That really does kind of break this game wide open. So you might try it and see if you can climb up the wall, but you'll notice that you pretty much slide down immediately whenever you touch a wall like this. You need a slope, but fortunately pretty much every wall in Bubsy 3D is sloped like this, so that's not a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to jump at it sideways, and it's purely a timing game. You just need to jump again at the right timing, and you can tell what the timing is because you'll kind of hear the sound of Bubsy's feet landing on the wall. So I'm going to do it once, and then I'm going to kind of explain what I'm doing. So I climb up the wall. Every single time I hear my feet land, I jump again. Bubsy has kind of 2 types of jumps he'll do. It's not really consistent. It depends on how long he's in the air. You'll notice sometimes when I'm in the air, I just jump and fall straight back down. Sometimes I do a flip in midair. the timing's a little bit different, but you do get the feeling for it. It's not too hard. The other trick is I try to keep so this game has tank controls. If I hold left and right, it just makes the camera turn. Otherwise, it's forward and back to move. Those are the way that you control this game. I try to hold the camera turn button at all times. I find that that's just more consistent. It also happens to be how you move in midair, so it's convenient, but it just makes it easier. So anyway, let's jump up this wall and get this stage on the way. All right, so I'm out of bounds. As you can see, out of bounds is a huge wide expanse. You can actually die out of bounds. If you'll notice, if you go far enough, there is like a border to the world. And if I even touch out of bounds, I just die instantly. So we'll avoid that. Sometimes that's a little harder than other times. Sometimes the amount of space you get out of bounds is very small. But wall climbing is actually probably the easiest trick, and it's the most versatile. You can get out of trouble anytime you fall in bounds. You can get out of bounds really easily, and it basically skips every level. Like for instance, the first level is just, here's the end right here. We're looking for these little markers to exit every single stage. So it's fairly trivial to get to the end once you figure out how to get out of bounds. And that's our first level in the books. Why does it?
So you
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, so you said that's basically like the main glitch that you want to be able to learn for this?
Yeah, if you can learn that, that's gonna carry you through about 75% of figuring out this run. A lot of it is little bits of routing, understanding movement in other ways, solving other problems, but most stages, I'd say probably more than 50% of the stages that you actually play on the ground that aren't just boss levels, usually you're just trying to get out of bounds as quickly as possible. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this game has tank controls because it came out, or at least started development before Mario 64. So no one really knew what the right way to make a 3D game was. No one really had an idea. There was basically, so I'm gonna collect this item. This item right here allows me to shoot atoms. I can press the square button to shoot an atom. And kill enemies. Usually the only way you can attack, by the way, is either to jump on the head of an enemy, or there's atoms throughout the level. If you hold the square button when you walk into them, you'll grab it to attack with. But that item that I picked up allows me to just have sort of a stockpile of my own to shoot. Usually you can't do that. And this level is really, really straightforward. If you're looking for the rocket parts, it's a little more detailed. But this level, we need to kill this guy to get past him. You actually don't have to kill him. If you get really lucky, you can jump and he just won't be in the way, but he's very fast and you'll likely just die. And all we're doing is hitting this propeller to go up, and there's the end right there. I should mention there's two types of jumps if you play this. There's the X jump, so if you press the cross button on the PlayStation controller, you just jump. If you hit the triangle button, you'll glide. The glide is how we're going to cross large gaps and how you can float up on the propellers.
Are the enemies in this game, like, if you touch them, do you just, like, die, or do you have, like, a health bar or something?
That's a great question. Bubsy does have sort of a reputation for being a one-hit kill game. In this one, it's not quite so bad, so you do have 3 hit points you can take. Every time you get hit, you get stunned, and it shows you how many hit points you have left. Except for if you, like, fall into the water, for instance. And one of the things that makes this game have such a bad reputation is that if you get hit, like, over water, for instance, because Bubsy just gets stunned and falls, if you're like floating over water, that's extremely dangerous, because getting hit in midair is just an instant death.
Okay.
So I will mention that more recently there is one glitch that I'm not very good at. It's an infinite jump glitch. The way it works is that when you glide, you can actually hold select and you kind of get stuck in midair for a second. I don't think that's an intended mechanic. I think it's just a glitch, or like a mistake in the programming. I'll call it that. That you kind of just get stalled in midair when you press the select button on the controller while you're gliding. And you can actually jump out of that. It's really hard to do. I think that there was a point where I was good at this when we first discovered this trick, but you can actually chain them together. So if you jump out of that with a glide, you can stall again, and then you can jump again. It does trivialize a few levels. I'm not too worried about not being able to do it consistently because it really only changes maybe 2 or 3 levels. But if you do want to learn this run, that's a really good glitch to learn because some of the levels it skips are somewhat slow, tedious ones. That item that I touched right there, that sort of spinning arrows that you see, those are checkpoints. You want those really badly. I will sometimes go out of my way a little bit to touch a checkpoint because it's the difference between starting the level back from the beginning and starting the level from that checkpoint. This does have tank controls, but when you are flying, like when you're in midair, it suddenly becomes, you know, you have full air control. And the camera turns down, which I actually think is a really great feature because you can see exactly where you're going to land when you're in midair. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I think that actually makes it a lot better. It would be... I can't imagine doing it without that.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a tedious platforming section. There's a bunch of platforms sort of in this spiral going up to the exit. The next thing you're going to learn as you run this game is that everything has geometry, even if you don't intend for it to have, even if you don't think they wanted it to have geometry. So like that plant in the water right there, you can actually stand on it. It takes a lot of practice to learn how to land on these. Your instinct is to kind of like roll out in midair, letting go of the triangle button kind of early, but you eventually learn to time it really late and it becomes a lot easier to land on these things. But they have geometry, you can stand on them, so it allows us to skip basically to the end of this platforming section right here.
Is it like a tight window of like being able to land on that, or is it pretty forgiving once you get
It's
the hang
mostly
of it?
just that it's extremely small. And that can make it very difficult, but if you learn to glide almost all the way to it and then let go of the triangle button to roll out and land on it, in my opinion, at this point, it feels very forgiving. Like, it feels like I can really mess up the timing and still land on it pretty safely. But when you first learn how to do that, you're gonna die, like, over and over and over, because it's counterintuitive landing on them.
Okay.
But a little bit of practice and you'll be fine. So this is our first boss fight. I can tell that I've got fast disc speed on because fast disc speed actually messes up some of the... Oh, actually I don't. I must have reset the console at some point and not turned back on fast disc speed. When you have fast disc speed on, it sometimes messes up the textures in the background here. I don't know why. Anyway, so the goal here is that these shots he's firing at you, they hurt you if you stand on them, but you can like float off of them. So if you float over them, you go up really high, and so you're trying to get to him and land on his head. You have to land on him 3 times. Nothing too complicated there. This fight is tricky to learn how to do quickly. It is not very hard to just do.
Okay.
So like the idea is trying to figure out how to like get him to target you and still manage to float off of that shot that he fires. So it takes a little bit of practice. I'm obviously out of practice a little. I'm like he's shooting. I'm standing too far from him, so it's making it very difficult for me to get to where he is. There we go. That'll work. So 3 hits and he's dead. Boss defeated. Yeah, the music in this game is wild. All the sound design in this game is wild. I'm not gonna spend my entire GDQ segment dunking on this game, but goodness, the sound design in this game is absolutely absurd. This is my entire GDQ segment dunking.
I was gonna say real quick before we get too far away from it. For anybody who doesn't know what fastest disc speed is, it is a setting on the PlayStation 2 where if you put a PlayStation 1 disc in it, you can have it run a little bit faster.
Yeah, so often when you play PlayStation 1 games on PlayStation 2, the thing that it's affecting is the load times. It actually makes a fairly pronounced difference on this game, the load times. I think like the first level, I've timed it before. It's like a difference between like 20 seconds to load the first level versus like 13. So,
which is
it adds up
huge.
over all the levels.
Yeah.
So that was our first boss fight, and it's definitely the easiest of them. There's 2 more boss fights. There's the woolly mammoth down here, and then the final boss fight. And they definitely scale up appropriately. The first one feels really trivial. The next one is going to be kind of annoying, and the last one is just hell. Not so much that you can't learn it, but if you don't go into it with a plan, you'll eat whatever few lives you have pretty quickly. The next level is the first of our water levels. The water levels aren't very difficult, except for figuring out how to navigate them, which is probably why if you've ever played this game casually, first, my condolences, and second, I do think this is a very good speed game. I think casually it's very frustrating. But the problem is that these water levels are fairly nondescript, so there's not a lot of like waypointing for you to be able to figure out where you are. You're not going to really recognize your position, and so navigating it can just be a real chore. You have an air meter down in the right that is basically another form of health. If you lose all of your air, you just die instantly, in addition to having hit points. You see I've taken a few hit points of damage. You can pick up more air through these little air tanks right here. So when I touch it, it gives me more air, about 100 worth. And there's also a dash. The dash is, first, your only attack underwater, so that makes it useful on its own. But in addition to that, it's also extremely fast. Like, this is the fastest I swim. By the way, I'm holding the run button at all times in this game. The R1 button is a run button. Underwater, if you don't hold the run button, it's excruciatingly slow. So like, this is how fast you go generally. And if I hold the run button down, it's actually fairly reasonable speeds. And then from here, I can hold down the dash button to attack, or, you know, ostensibly as an attack, or I can just use it to go fast. I'm gonna do that level again, because in the process of kind of explaining it, I don't think I did a very good job showing the route through it, but there's basically a little shortcut in it that you can go over one of the hills. It forces you to not go too high, otherwise it like surrounds you in bubbles and pushes you back down. That's how they prevent you from just swimming all the way to the top of the screen all the time. But there is like a little cutout in the mountains in one spot where if you find that, then the whole level's really, really fast.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go through this level real quick one more time just to kind of show what the route actually would look like. So the controls here are X goes up, circle goes down, and otherwise you're just holding up to go forward all the time. Again, like not the most intuitive controls, but once you get used to it, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. You really do want to make a point of saving some air as an attack, because there's a lot of enemies that'll get in your way and hit you, like those dogfish dash at you and will hurt you, so it's just good to be cognizant of that. The cutout is over here, by the way. You could keep going around and routing through this level, but there's a little cutout right here in the mountain that if you swim through here, you're pretty much at the end.
Do you know if that's intentional, or is that just like an oversight on the geometry?
It's probably intentional. There's a lot of little cutouts like that. In fact, if you're looking for the rocket parts in these levels, you pretty much have to find these little hidden areas that are made from those kinds of cutouts.
Okay.
So I think it's intentional. I think the whole conceit of those water levels is that they're just very difficult to navigate, and you're on a timer because of the air meter. But I don't think that they're designed to be specifically difficult. Like, it's just, the challenge here is like, you see an enemy and so you want to dash to kill it, but that eats like 20 points of your air meter, and you're already on a limited air meter, and you're getting lost, so it's just counting down the whole time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's all about. Anyway, this next level, we're going to go out of bounds immediately. Get used to that theme. This is probably, at least in my experience, this wall, for some reason, is probably the hardest one to climb in the game. This is the one that always used to trip me up the most when I was playing it. I think it has to do with just how steep it is, but once you get out of bounds, the rest of this level is still not trivial. Like, for instance, there's this like little mountain that's in your way, so you do have to jump around it, and that can be a little bit tricky to kind of navigate around it properly. Now, if you continue this way around the level, you'll find the exit, but there's a little shortcut right here. As soon as you see this pillar right here, if you basically just jump off to the right over here, there's a little teleporter down here that takes you straight to the end. So there's the end of the level. Not too terribly difficult, but we're going to look at a few things in some of these levels coming back through in just a bit. The levels certainly ramp up, so even though we have this ability to clip out of bounds, and that seems like it makes all the really early levels really fast, the later levels do continue to get more involved, and we're not going to just be able to skip them outright for the most part. Most of them aren't going to have this really neatly ordered wall around the whole thing, so it's going to be a little more technical for us to actually get through them, though we will still be able to use the same tricks. This is the second of our water levels. It's a small mercy that they put all the water levels together so you can kind of just get them all knocked out. So we're going to go over to the right. This one's, again, the difficulty in these levels is figuring out where to go. You can get lost pretty easily. And also, if you're trying to go for all the rocket parts, there's more work to be done, right? So you're going to be looking for those and trying to find them. But if you just know where to go, yeah, I took a turn around the corner there, and then the ending is right here. If you know where you're going, it's not super complicated to just go straight to the end. Again, I'll be honest with you, it's a small mercy. The water levels are frustrating to play. They're probably the worst part of this game, and they put 3 of them all at the beginning and none of them at the end. Thank you. Thank you.
At least you get rid of them early.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's nice. That's nice. This is probably the level that has the least to it. This is the level that is the least involved. We're going to go out of bounds at the beginning, we're going to run a little bit, and we're going to be at the end. So, again, I think it's actually nice when oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong level. This one's a little more involved. So, there's actually a lot going on in this level, and there's a few ways that you can approach it. So, we're talking about from the perspective of someone who's just learning this game to speedrun, not trying to do the most advanced strats here. If you want to, if you find it easier, you can actually get entirely out of bounds. That's fine. The place I actually wanted to go out of bounds was right at the beginning, but I'd left it. So if you go over here and you go out of bounds right at the very beginning, it's a little more running, but it's a little easier than doing this the right way. Because doing this the fast way involves trying to get past a lot of enemies, and doing these wall climbs while enemies are pressuring you can be very stressful. So if you prefer, you can just go out of bounds right at the very beginning and wind your way around the whole stage. It's certainly slower because you're going a little bit out of your way, but you're going to find the end of the level definitely if you just go around the side. So here, I'm winding my way around the whole thing. Notice the path gets a little narrow here. We do not want to walk off the edge, but the end is right here. These archways are usually a good indicator if you're having a hard time finding the ending while you're playing it. You can find these little archways and they usually indicate where the end is. Not every single end has an archway like that, but usually it does, so it's a good way to spot it, fairly straightforward.
And so that, I guess that would be like the easy / marathon safe route.
I would say that if you practice it, the fast strat is fairly safe, but I think when you're still learning to do wall climbing, it can be very stressful knowing that if you mess up, then you're gonna fall right into an enemy shot or something like that. So
yeah.
Here would be the faster strat, is I'm gonna run by this enemy, I'm gonna run by this enemy. They're all firing at me, and if they hit me, they're gonna stun me. And I need to do a wall climb right next to this guy. So yeah, that wall gets fairly steep, but the world record actually does the infinite jump to get over that wall, because that wall can be a little bit tricky. And then you can go over this wall as well to go a little bit faster. This wall's much easier to climb. Or you can just go around it, it's not that bad. And then you're actually right at the ending right here, and you went in a straight line, so it was faster. So here is the ending.
That's a little, because to me, those walls both looked identical geometry. And one of them is just way easier than the other.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. You know, I'm willing to consider that it's something that's entirely in my head, but some of the walls just, it doesn't take them being too much steeper for it to be really hard to climb them. They don't have to be too much, you know, just a little difference in the grade of the slope, and it can be nearly impossible. The trick is that you need Bubsy to, when he lands on the wall, he has to kind of like land his feet properly. And so if the wall's too steep, your jump isn't going to give you enough height in order to actually do that.
Okay, yeah.
So this is the third of our water levels. Again, just the same as before. This level is incredibly involved if you're looking for the rocket parts because it's a navigation challenge. But if you're not worried about the rocket parts, it's just merely getting to the end. And the end is almost directly in front of you, to be perfectly honest. This is the one that I always get the most tripped up navigating, but I think I'll probably be fine, hopefully. Yeah, there it is. I don't know why, but I've always... Okay, dogfish, thank you. I'm just gonna dash all the way to the end now. That one has always made me get lost the easiest. If you're gonna learn this, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of saying, okay, well the water levels are pretty much a straight line from start to finish, so I'm just gonna do that and move on. But you can actually learn some stuff in order to make the water levels quite a bit faster. Learning how to route from air tank to air tank properly, like learning that path, is actually faster because you can then dash a lot more. So it is good to get into the habit of taking those levels seriously, even though, you know, when I'm showing them right now, they seem really, really straightforward, and they are. You know, the difference between my run, for instance, and the world record saves a lot of time on me in those water levels, so it's good to take them seriously. So this level right here, we're going to turn a little bit, and I'm going to jump into this corner, and we're going to climb this wall, and that's pretty much the whole level. I mean, we're not right at the... Please? These wall climbs are cursed. Okay. So, we're not right at the end, but it's a straight shot to the end. So we're going to run here for probably about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and we'll be right at the end. I do kind of want to show you, I think this level is a good example of showing this off, because it's kind of where I learned this. It's a small thing to pay attention to, but so this level, the end is in the corner here. So you could run basically all the way to the corner and then line yourself up really nicely and then jump to the ending right there. But as you speedrun a game, you sometimes try to figure out, you know, can I cut corners? So you're like, okay, well, I'll jump from way back here and just see what happens. And, oh no, I fell in bounds, and now I've got to play the level properly. Well, that's not entirely true. Almost all the walls, because we're fortunate enough that almost every wall is sloped in some way, you can just get right back out of bounds. But also worth noting is that when you're in a situation like this, where the wall is close enough to the end, where the wall is close enough to a platform, you can actually get up the wall a little bit and then just use that to jump to where you're needing to go. So like, for instance, if I jump to the right once and then jump to the left, that actually gets me onto the platform pretty easily. So you can come up with these backups pretty quickly, sometimes by necessity, but it's not too hard to figure out a backup strat in some of these cases where, oh, you just missed a jump. Well, if the walls around you are sloped and you can climb sloped walls, then there's really never a losing condition. There's never a situation you can't recover from, which I think is kind of nice.
Yeah.
This next boss is pretty difficult. It's the place where my dance pad run ended. I've never completed my dance pad run because this boss was miserable to play on a dance pad.
I didn't know you tried to dance pad this.
Well, Church, I don't always make good choices. So this boss fight is actually pretty involved. The idea here, so the premise of this boss fight is we can't hurt the enemy. What we can do, however, is if the enemy falls into the acid that's around the outside of the arena, then he'll die. And so we need him to break down the wall and go into the acid on the outside. The walls are pretty sturdy. When he hits the wall, he just bounces off of it. But if he hits the same section of wall 3 times, it'll finally break. The wall's broken down into like fairly wide sections. It's not too technical. It's not too like granular. But if you try to make him hit roughly the same spot 3 times, then you'll win. So that's the idea here. He runs at you and he'll flip over when he gets close to you. That's how his attack works. If you jump on him, the crowd is upset and they boo at us, and so they throw a banana. He will slip on the banana, And that's how we get him to run into the wall. And we will repeat this process now. So you can see that wall is flashing a little bit. It'll flash more severely as it starts to break more and more. The trick here, what you really need to learn, so once you understand what this boss fight's asking of you, it's not too bad. But what you do need to learn is how to kite his movement. So the crowd doesn't always throw the banana very well. Sometimes it's in a good spot, sometimes it's not. So you gotta learn how to like adjust the angle he's approaching that banana in order to make sure that he hits the wall in the same spot every time. If you had asked me, I would have told you I had hit the same spot 3 times, but apparently I missed by a little bit and he hit a different wall. So I'm gonna kite him. I need him to come to the right a little bit first before he comes back to the left. Also, his hitbox is pretty wide. He doesn't have to hit the banana too severely in order to he doesn't have to hit it like too straight on for it to count. So that's actually, again, the running theme for this game is small mercies.
Yeah.
Alright, so we got another banana coming. I bet I can get him to run into this one and then we'll be done with the fight. Learning how to do this in 3 hits is really not that bad. You can get this fight pretty fast. The tricks to it, so the tricks to learning how to speed up this fight are, you really want to figure out how to get yourself positioned in such a way so that when he runs into the wall and he's ready to come back and run at you again, that he doesn't have to run too far. But if you can't get a good view of him, you may not know when to jump. So it's really about balancing and managing that distance. It takes time to get Bubsy to turn the camera properly, but at the same time, you don't want to be so far away that he takes forever to run up to you. So it's all about balancing that distance. Every route for this next level involves some of that weird jumping on the plants in the water. So I'm going to show you a relatively safe strategy for this one, and then I'm going to show a faster strategy for this one. And if you love this run and you want to learn it, there's an even faster way that you can use the infinite jump to speed it up a little more. If you want to use the infinite jump, what you can do is you can basically run off in that direction and use the infinite jump to get enough height to get on top of the plants. But the problem is that the plants are tall enough that we can't just jump on them directly, so we need to get up in the air a little bit in order to get the height necessary. The reason why we need those plants is because they're going to give us the ability to jump over the water, which is what's separating us from where the ending is. So I'm here. There's some platforms around me that I need to find. I think the first one is right about here, but there's a step up to it. I think I've lost my bearings just a little bit talking. Let's see where I am. I gotta get the camera to turn down so I can see where I am. It's on this side, isn't it? Yeah, it's on this side. Okay, so we're gonna infinite jump up this wall. That's what I was looking for. Or not infinite jump, sorry. Wall climb up this wall. Not a very difficult wall to climb up, but we're gonna get on top of here. And then once we're on top of here, we can run around this platforming section here. So this is just a minor, insignificant platforming challenge to get to where we're trying to go to. From here, jump across this gap. And the goal is for us to get basically above one of these plants in the water. These water plants in this direction are separating us from where the ending is, which is over in that way. So we're trying to get to where we can get a good view on it. I actually think I went the wrong way around here, but I don't think it's a problem. I know roughly where I'm going.
Just this level design looks incredibly difficult to get a bearing on if you are not quite sure what you're doing.
Yeah, I've talked my way into a position that I'm not recognizing exactly, so I'm just trying to get back to where I am. And you're absolutely right. One of the really negative things about this game is that a lot of the platforming is very difficult in the sense that it's hard to figure out exactly where you are at any given time. It's like not obvious just looking at it, so you sometimes have to get your bearings better. Let's see. I think I was supposed to go this way around. Yeah, I'm supposed to be over here. That's fine. I just went the wrong way around the loop. Okay, so I'm here, and what we want is we want to use those plants right there to get across this water. So I'm gonna fly, and I'm gonna roll out pretty late, and that time was a little too late. Like I said, they're permissive, but not that permissive. So this time, let's go the right way around so I can show you. And then I'll show you a faster route that's actually a little easier to learn. It's just a little more challenging. Okay, so we're going here. Going this way around. Sometimes it's just easier to like navigate, you know, if you're trying to turn left and right. It's easier to just do it by hopping over and over because you get full air control, whereas when you're on the ground, it's tank controls. Just something to consider, that you do have the option, if you don't want to just turn left in order to go a very small distance after turning left, you can just jump as you're going, and that makes it a little easier. So I'm going this way around. This is the way I was supposed to go the first time. And I go here. And the plants I'm looking for are the ones that are right here, so I'm gonna not roll out quite so late this time. As you can see, they are pretty permissive. If you look at where I'm standing, I'm pretty far off of the plant at this point. You can see my my shadows kind of hovering in midair. We're gonna jump to the next one, and then from here, I'm gonna jump to the end. That's a long distance gap. So that would have taken us pretty much right to the end. Let me show you a slightly easier to learn route. It's a little more challenging. So I'm gonna incorporate some of these wall climbs a little more in order to get to where I wanna go. So here I'm gonna climb up this wall. And from here, I can jump right over here. And all I have to do now, usually what I would like to do, is I would like to get to those plants that are right in front of me. Those plants are the ones that we were jumping on before. We were just having to go across the skywalk in order to get to them. You can see I can't get high enough in the air in order to actually get the height I would need to jump on top of it. So instead what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this little mountain right here. Again, every geometry is climbable. You just have to not slide off of it. That one right there, if you mess up the wall climb, you just fall directly into the water, which is the reason why it's more challenging. But it's definitely faster than taking the catwalk to get to where we were. So let's see if I can get back there really quickly. Again, I'm doing this at speed now. I'm not trying to show off anything. I get over here, and I just want to climb on top of one of these mountains. I'm going to do the smaller one. You have to jump pretty much right as soon as you hear the feet landing on the ground. And when you start to practice this, you start to get a feel for that. You start to get a feel for when you're going to hear that sound. So I won't talk over it this time. Maybe you'll be able to hear it. So you probably heard the sound of Bubsy's feet hitting the ground. That is your clue for when to jump again. Let's try this one again. I'm gonna hold right the whole time. It's a tricky jump.
Yeah, but I can definitely see that it's a lot faster. Like you've gone back a few times, and I still feel like it's faster than if you had walked around the catwalk.
Yeah, it's taken me I've been able to attempt this 4 times in the amount of time it would have taken me to do the catwalk. One of the nice things about this game, I'll point out while I'm talking about right now, is if you do die at any point, just like in Bubsy for the Super Nintendo, it was a feature in that game as well. In this one, if you have a checkpoint, or even if you don't have a checkpoint, just if you resume a level after having died in it, any enemies you've killed stay dead. So if you clear out enemies to make things easier, they stay dead, and so your next attempt is a little easier because of it. This segment, by the way, that we're on right now, I'm supposed to just destroy this guy, and then that clears out a wall for us to go on. There's my first rocket part. It makes the whole screen flash. Sorry about the flashing. But those are the rocket parts that are hidden in every level. That one's not particularly well hidden, which is why I showed it off.
That's the intended route, though?
Yeah, the intended route would be breaking down that wall and going sort of the long way around.
Yeah, that doesn't feel very well hidden to me.
No. No, most of them are not just like on your critical route. There's only one rocket that's like, I would say, generally speaking, on the critical route, and that's you beat the game by collecting the very last rocket part. So the any percent route collects one rocket. If we were Super Mario 64, you might. I got to the top of it, and then I couldn't read what the top of it looked like because it was all solid black. Yeah, if we were Super Mario 64, we would have called the category one rocket. It's a good naming scheme, it works. You can see here, I feel like this kind of demonstrates the point that I was making before, though, is that sometimes when you jump up a wall like that, Bubsy will do a flip in midair, and it just delays the timing of that sound of Bubsy's feet hitting the ground, and you have to learn to account for that. That's what makes the wall climbing really tricky, is knowing what kind of jump you're gonna get. You just have to read it really fast.
Is that backflip, like, does that have any gameplay significance, or is that just purely aesthetic and I guess delaying the land?
I think it's purely aesthetic. I mean, there's no like notion that when Bubsy does a flip in midair that something good is happening for you. It's just mostly the animation of jumping. If the game recognizes that you've got enough height and there's enough time, then it'll play that animation because it wants to show the cool animation of Bubsy flipping in midair. But if you're climbing up a wall, like the game will recognize, oh, you're not high enough off the ground, you wouldn't finish that animation before you touch the ground, so we just won't play the animation. But it drastically changes the timing of when you jump again, so it's kind of worth noting. All right, well, I'm just gonna go around the catwalks this time because I don't really feel like dying on that one. The difference is if you do it that way. I think I'm probably climbing the wrong one. The smaller one's actually probably harder. But the difference is that if you do it that way, as soon as you get on top of that hill, you can just float to right where the ending is. You can see the ending from the top of that little hill. Actually,
okay, so you circumvent the flowers altogether with that.
Yeah. Actually, I'm stubborn. Let me try this one more time because I want to see if the bigger one is actually. My instinct was wrong. That was the wrong one. Okay, I'll do the catwalk now. I also have all the levels unlocked, so I could skip this one if I wanted to. I've shown everything there is to the level. Once you get on top of the flowers or on top of that hill, if you just jump to the other side, you'll see the end. It's right at the end of the level. These are just really tricky, and I mean, you know, if this is the strat you're going to do, for instance, you really have to just fully commit to it, because yeah, this one has a flat top, the other one doesn't, so I was right the first time. It's the smaller one that you want. This was actually, like, discovering that you could do it by jumping on this hill was a relatively recent discovery, like a late discovery. The route used to always take the catwalk because we didn't know another way, and shortly after I found that route in the level was when we had discovered the glitch that allows you to infinite jump, and that just makes this level way more trivial because if you can infinite jump, you can just get a little bit of height and fly over the water. So it's not challenging at that point. Like, it negates all the challenge of this level. The glitch, by the way, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since it was discovered, maybe a year or so. If I remember correctly, it was actually discovered by someone who like didn't speedrun the game. They just like found it and posted a video on YouTube, and one of us ran across it at some point, if I'm not mistaken. And we were like, oh, we've got to figure out how to do this. And it turned out not to actually be all that hard. But it's so technical, and I've lost my touch for being able to do it. It's, you know, glide and then you hover mid. See, I can re-jump. I just re-jumped there one time, but you have to be able to do it several times for it to be worthwhile. So
it's kind of like this might be not the best example, but super jumping in SMRPG, or I think it's called super jumping.
Yeah, kind of. You know, it's not too hard to get to 13 super jumps, and if you can get to like 20, that's cool. I mean, you've pulled it off a few times, but it's only really, you know, meaningful to the run if you can do it 100 times in a row. So
yeah.
So anyway, that's the whole level. Once you get to the other side of the water, the end is right there. So you know, however you decide to get there, if you learn how to do the infinite jump, that will get you enough height to get on top of the plants. That's the quickest route by far. If you take the catwalks, that's definitely the slowest, but it's the easiest because landing on the plants really isn't that difficult. And then in between, if you want to risk it, you can try to do the wall climb on those little mountains in the water. Everything has geometry, for better or worse. Everything in this game you can stand on, you can walk on. There's pretty much nothing in this game you'll ever see that you just like Bubsy moves right through because they didn't intend it. For whatever reason, everything has geometry. So if you see it, you can probably climb on it. So this is where the levels start to get a lot more involved. So this sort of last line of levels, this is where it gets really, really involved. I'll talk about a few small things that I haven't mentioned yet because they haven't been relevant, but they're going to start to be relevant. So one of those is that you can always buffer jump. So if I jump in midair, so what I mean by buffering a jump is that if you press the jump button and hold it before you touch the ground, you'll jump again. So for instance, I'll be in midair and I'm going to let go of the jump button and press and hold it again before I ever touch the ground. And you'll notice that Bubsy basically jumps again the moment he touches the ground. That's not super useful most of the time. I guess if you're like chaining a bunch of difficult jumps, you may want to buffer them in order to make it work. But one of the nice things is that there's these cars here, right? So these cars are meant to like, you ride around in them and you have to jump off at the right time. That's sort of the mechanic that's going on here. The thing is that when Bubsy gets in the car, he takes a moment to settle kind of down into it. So if I were to jump into this car and try to jump out and grab onto that platform, I can't reach it. Bubsy's too low. But if I buffer a jump, I can actually get enough height to basically skip this whole section right here. I'm supposed to like jump from one car to the next, and from another car to another car, and from another car to a platform, and you can basically just jump in the first car, and if you hold the jump button, so let go and repress it and hold it, when you jump in, it will give you enough height to just make it up to this platform directly. So that's the first small time saver in this level. This is most of what you're doing in this level. You're sitting in the cars. You can crouch down with circle. If you hold circle, it'll make you crouch. That's useful because a lot of times you're going to be flying right under enemies who are going to be shooting at you. So that's useful to have. The next place we're going is right here. There's a little platform if you kind of run forward and to the side from where we got off of the last one. This next car is going to fly under 3 enemies, so I'm going to keep my head down, holding circle. They can't hit me if I'm holding circle. And then we're going to jump off onto these platforms over here. So, right here. From here, I'm going to go across some of these other platforms. Now, if you learn the infinite jump, again, if you learn the infinite jump, this level is going to become really trivial because a lot of what this level is just verticality. The next area that you're going to want to get to is just a little higher than the previous area you were at. So if you can jump infinitely, you can just find where the end of the level is and get that height automatically. Thank you, Bubsy. So here I'm going to jump out and go over to this platform and jump down to this car. This is another one of those levels that the only real difficulty is just learning to navigate it. And if you're trying to figure out where you can go, one trick you can do is just follow the lines on the ground. There's like a colored path underneath each car. And so if you're on ground level, if you're just running around at the bottom, you can kind of map out which cars you need to jump into to make it work. But it's not too terribly difficult to just memorize, you know, when I'm here, jump in this car, when I'm here, jump in this car. And finally, this pink track is going to take us right to the end. So not too difficult, but as you might imagine, it's actually very easy to just get to the ground right there. From basically the beginning of the level, you can get to the ground right under there. So if you can infinite jump, you can jump right up to this exit rather than taking the cars. The infinite jump is a little bit technical. So even if you do learn how to do it, even if you do take the time to figure out how the infinite jump mechanic works, it can be a little bit inconsistent. It takes some practice. So it's still worthwhile to know I guess the intended route in this case. Aside from little skips here and there, that level right there doesn't really have any tricks in it. It's all just about knowing the route in advance, making it easier. This next level is called Woolyville Horror, and it contains the only instance of a very cool trick that I wish showed up a lot more often in this game. So I'm probably going to take a moment to demonstrate it because it's just really cool, and it's a real shame that it only happens in one level. So in this level, there's a lot of things you can do, but where we need to go first actually happens to be right over this wall. So we're just gonna wall climb and get over there. This is a switch. We haven't actually had to hit any of these yet, but when I hit the switch, it turns on this propeller right here. And usually if you float above the propeller, you kind of get a certain amount of height, and that's it. That's all. The propellers can hurt you, by the way, if you actually touch them. But you just kind of float in place, so I'll float back down, and then it'll float back up. And that's nice. But this is actually the only instance that this comes up to my knowledge. It may come up in 100%, and I'm misremembering. But one of the cool things is that if you hover off of this propeller and get stuck under a platform, so like this right here, notice the camera's going up and up and up, and if I push forward to get myself unstuck, I'm now way in the air. So I like built up speed over a period of time, getting stuck underneath that platform, and ended up landing here. The place you want to land is right there on that platform that's in front of me. It has 2 teleporters, and we're going to use those teleporters to get to the end of the level. I chose to land here because if you don't float for long enough, so you decide how long you want to stick underneath that platform. And if you go a little too early, you won't get enough height to make it the whole distance. So you may occasionally find yourself landing on this, and it's good to recognize that you can land on this pretty easily. It's not hard to land on. It doesn't try to shove you off or anything, and you can just from here float over to this platform without any trouble. There's 2 teleporters, one on the left and one on the right. I'm just going to jump into the one on the right. That's the one we want. And from here, I'm just going to always back up into the next teleporter. As soon as I see the rocket part, so there's the rocket part, I know that I'm where I need to go. The ending happens to be right over there, so I'm going to float over there. And it turns out that these mountains are kind of weird. As long as you keep running, they don't shove you off. Unlike a lot of mountains, you know, usually when you touch the slopes, they just shove you off instantly. For some reason, those mountains, I guess, just aren't steep enough. You can just run on them really easily. You don't have to do anything fancy. And that's where the end of the level is.
That's really sad that you only get to do that air glitch once, because that looked really... That was so cool!
Yeah, you can just hold it there for a really long time and fly up so high that it takes you forever to fall down. It'd be really cool to sit and see whether or not it's actually possible to float high enough to just fly your way all the way to the end. But it's really far away, so I feel like you'd be sitting there for a few hours building up speed if you wanted to try that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that really being possible. So
and it definitely wouldn't be a strat for the speedrun.
Yeah, it definitely would not. So I'm going to show this one more time. By the way, some of these enemies are unkillable, like that guy's unkillable. There's a power-up that makes you invulnerable, and you can use that as the only method of killing those guys. You can't jump on them. You're really not going to have the means to shoot them otherwise, so they're really just a hassle. So grabbing that power-up right there can really give you a moment to like catch your breath, get situated, and it'll even last long enough for you to get over here while these guys would otherwise be shooting at you. So yeah, as soon as it wore off, they got the word that my power-up wore off, so they were like, all right, now's the time. It is a little tricky to get stuck under this platform, I will mention. Like getting close enough to the propeller that you float up without being, you know, like that you're far enough underneath the platform takes a little bit of practice. Anyway, so I built up speed. Now, probably a little too high, I don't know. Oh no. Oh, I saved it. Okay, so you want to land on this one. It really just takes a little bit of practice to figure out the right timing. When I was running this actively, I had an internal clock inside my head. I just knew stay in the propeller for this many beats and then go, and it's really easy to time it. How did I get stuck in midair? I had like a weird stall right there where I
Yeah, it looked like you didn't glide for a little bit.
Yeah, you just stopped in midair. Anyway, so one more time. Propeller stays on. The enemy that I killed stayed dead. I think those are nice features, personally. That happens. It's perhaps a strat worth considering that not getting stuck as long, intentionally landing right here and then just gliding over to the teleporter is an option on the table. It's also important to remember that the game remembers what direction your camera is facing a little bit. And so when you go through the teleporters, sometimes you have to just know, based on what position the camera was facing before, which direction you want to go out of the next teleporter. But not something that's difficult to learn, so I won't waste too much time on that. Why would anyone speedrun this game? I think that there is a certain beauty to speedrunning games that are like just purely for the tricks that are in them. Like, I think the tricks in this game are really satisfying. That's what drew me to it initially. That and really just being a big Bubsy fan, but I'm not prepared to unpack that on Hotfix. That is a completely different discussion. But like, I think what I was drawn to was that this game has really cool tricks. So even if the game has a bad reputation or maybe isn't super fun casually, which I would probably argue, I think it is kind of a fun game casually if you aren't going into it looking for the next Super Mario 64. But I think it's a good game. So this game, this level has a few routes in it. If you were to do a slightly safer route, you would dismount the car there and you would run off in that direction. And you're basically running around a giant lake. But I'm not going to do that route. I'm going to do the faster one because it's not actually terribly harder. It's worthwhile these days to probably just learn this route. So you're going to go here. This gap right here is kind of far. I've been doing a trick this whole time that I haven't explained on purpose because I don't think it's really worthwhile to explain super early. There's two, like I said, there's two jump buttons. So there's a normal jump button and there's a glide button. And one thing you'll maybe notice if you pay really close attention is that the normal jump button jumps pretty high and the normal glide button jumps pretty low. If you press the X button and immediately switch to the glide button, you'll get the height of the jump button with the glide of the glide button, and you can combine those to actually get a little more distance sometimes. The reason why I mention it now is because this gap is actually pretty tough to make just gliding, but if you press X and then immediately switch to holding triangle, that gap is a lot more manageable.
And so that's not even really a timing thing. It's just press one button and then hold the other one right after, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really not a lot of trick to it. You'll probably want to practice it before you like throw it into a speed run. But you know, if you just press the jump button and let go of it immediately and start holding the triangle button, you get the benefits of both basically. Likewise, I could use these platforms that are moving right here to my left in order to make this gap, but I can do the same thing by jumping and then holding the glide button, and that gets me just enough distance to not have to worry about that so much. This route that I've shown you, by the way, has now dropped us right off at the end. So this platform to our left is where the exit is. You're supposed to go a pretty convoluted way to get around to get to this platform, but as with most of this game, if you have a slope platform, you can just jump up it. So that's how we save a whole bunch of time. The alternate route that I was talking about at the beginning, if you get off the car early and go off to the right there, it's just one long counterclockwise path around a lake that leads to the same exact platform. So really very little difference between those two routes. The only difference is that the one that I went off to the left is a little faster. If you didn't find that route comfortable, I think the difference is less than 10 seconds. So if you're just learning, perfectly reasonable to take the safer, easier route. In my opinion, this is the first level where things actually kind of get difficult. I'm not meaning to suggest that the whole game is easy. I think anyone who's tried to play this game, let alone speedrun it, would argue that it's easy. But as with anything, practice can make a lot of things easier. This is the first one where I would argue that even well practiced, this is a difficult level. That guy shot me, and I was over water, and that combination means death. So here, you don't have to wall climb up that wall. There's like platforms around here that'll get you the height you need to get up onto these pink blocks. But wall climbing there is a tiny bit faster, so I do it. You gotta climb up these, I'll just describe them as mushrooms. They're kind of mushroom shaped, or trees with flat tops, if that's what you like. To get on top of these platforms, so we're going here first. Now, this level is pretty involved. It's not super fast. The infinite jump does actually make this a little faster, so you can use the infinite jump to speed this up a little bit, but you still mostly are learning the same route. We're gonna stand on this red platform, and here's our first trick. We're supposed to like go off to the left here and do some things in order to find a switch that makes this red platform move. The red platform switch is like right over here, so if I shoot, you can see it right there. By the way, they come back at you if you miss anything. But if you hit it, the red platform starts moving, so that's a little time save there. I mean, it's a significant time save, but I mean, it's a sequence break, I guess. Here, we're on I guess I'll call this a reverse mushroom then. I'm just trying to get up above because there's a switch up here I need to hit, and this switch releases the cage that's preventing that mechanical spider down there from moving. That mechanical spider is our friend. He is a vehicle for us to cross long distances. He will carry us across the water. You can probably already get a picture of how infinite jumping is going to help us here. We don't have to worry about the spider in the cage. If we can just find a short-ish path across the water, then you can get enough height to glide over it. I'm not going to do that, and this route isn't, I wouldn't say, terribly slower. But gosh, if you could infinite jump, it sure would be easier. So here, I'm gonna give myself a small gift of jumping down and grabbing this checkpoint. Happy birthday to me. And we're gonna continue on. This section right here is kind of a grueling gauntlet. If these guys shoot you, very often you're probably above water, so trying to not get hit would be great. That life on the floor there is actually worth 2 lives if I'm not mistaken, so you know, not a bad idea to pick it up if you're like low on lives and you're trying to do a run and not have to save a whole bunch, so you just play it fast and loose. Would sure suck the game over. So there's where a really nice I think 2-pack of lives are. I put in some codes at the beginning. I'll mention those in a moment, but the password system, so the game allows you to save your progress on a memory card, or it will give you passwords if you ask for them, for you to use passwords instead. There are a few, like, I guess quote-unquote cheat codes that you can put in the password menu as well. One of them gives you 99 lives. I put that in every time I'm practicing because it's good. And there's another one that unlocks all the levels, which I put in when I'm practicing because that's good. The 99 lives one is X Mucho Life. That's the password. Wouldn't be Bubsy without a silly password. And the one for unlocking all the levels is like X level cheat MSB, so it's like X LVL CHT MSB. That password will stay stuck in my memory into old age, but
that's how you know it's a good password.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of the level. It's not too much faster with the infinite jump. So the infinite jump will allow you to skip from about the halfway point in the level to about the 3/4 of the way point through the level. The only thing you're really skipping is that annoying section with the catwalk that has all those enemies on it that make your life a living hell. That's what you're really skipping with that level. So, or that's what you're skipping with that trick. So this was the first level that I ever figured out how the trick worked, because this is the level, that was the level that I wanted to save time on. I was like, I'm by God going to figure out a way to save time on that level. So we did, we figured it out, and it's in the 80% world record now. Tyler, by the way, Tyler MOTU is his username. He took this game from where I had it. So I had a 27 something in this game, and that was an unbelievable time compared to anyone else. And before new strats were even found, he lowered it to like a 25, which is, I mean, it's hard for me to put in perspective if you don't like know relative times in this game, but that's an unbelievable time in this game. And then when new strats were found with the new like infinite jump skip and things like that, he brought it down to a 21, which is just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous time. He is to be commended for how much work he has put into this game. I guess on the note of mentioning, you know, since this is a show about learning to speedrun, I should mention that with few exceptions, there's no game that's not made up of more than just the runners for the community. And this game is no exception. I actually didn't do the initial routing for this game. Mine was probably the first, like, I don't want to say real speedrun, but the first speedrun that actually employed tricks, but I didn't find those tricks. A glitch hunter, a friend of mine, Nick's Report, basically found all these tricks and figured out ways to turn them into a cohesive speedrun. And I just think it's nice that there's, you know, people might joke, like, I can't believe there's more than one person who plays this game, but I mean, you know, every speed game is propped up by its fantastic community. And this game actually has a really nice community. Zindictive is another runner of this game who put so much effort into 100%. At this point, he doesn't have, I don't think he has the 100% world record anymore, but the world record run got pushed down so much because of him. I fell down, and I did not want to fall down. I had to go, I'm backwards in the level now, so that sucks. Anyway, all that to say, there's a lot of really cool people in the community, a lot of great runners, and even glitch hunters and routers. It's more, there's definitely more than just me, and these days I'm not even the person to look for if you want to see good Bubsy 3D play. There's constantly new people learning this game. It seems to be a popular choice for like 12-hour challenges. I guess people don't want to invest that much in it. They just want to get a taste for it, but people have learned this game and picked it up, and the game keeps getting pushed forward. I think before I ever did my first run of the game, the world record was like over an hour, and I brought it down to like a 25. No, a 27, and then Tyler brought it down to a 25, and then finally like a 21. The death animations in this game are super cute and also infuriating.
Yeah, I can imagine they're infuriating to see during a run.
It's like thanks, Bubsy, very cute. Like, it's that feeling every time he runs off a platform like that, and he does this like cute little animation. It's like, can you just die already so that I can move on to my next attempt? Like,
yeah,
real cute. Please shut up.
I just had flashbacks to a game you've also run, to the minefield in the Grinch.
Oh Lord.
You're like, you missed the jump, and you're like, please, I don't want to go again. Please stop.
Why do we do these things to ourselves, Church?
It's funny you say that, because I'll defend Grinch to the death, kind of like you were defending Bubsy earlier.
Yeah.
These games are great.
Yeah, you know what I'm about. I think Grinch is great too. I mean, I did learn the game, and I think it's a fantastic speedrun. I guess if I'm doing the tutorial thing, I'm kind of just mindlessly going through this level, but I will mention that the car passes right by this corner. Like, it takes a corner right here and runs into this wall. By the way, never let your car that you're riding in run to the walls, because you'll get that annoying death animation for that. As the car is turning the corner, you can actually do a pretty wide jump all the way over to that platform and save yourself a little bit of trouble. You can jump to most any of this catwalk here. This is where you're supposed to dismount, but you can jump to pretty much any of this catwalk if you're brave enough. And you can even jump all the way to that darker gray platform, which is where the car we need is. You just have to, if you want to make it that far, you're really going to need to be able to master that ability of jumping with the jump button and then gliding with the glide button. Like, combining those jumps together is the only way you're going to really get the distance you need there. So here, you're occasionally seeing me turn the camera down. I find it easier to line things up sometimes as well, like timing jumping out of the car, timing jumping into something else if I turn the camera down, and that's, again, just holding down the circle button. There's no magic to it. It's just you hold down the circle button and Bubsy crouches. Once you make it to this platform right here, there is a rocket part that comes from solving this puzzle, hitting these switches in the right order, knowing the color order. But we're not getting the rocket parts. Jump in this car, and boom, we're at the end. By the way, that little car ride, I've died on so many times because you don't see, there's no wall. It doesn't show you like a little, here's where the car's gonna blow up. And if you wait just a moment too late, the car blows up and you fall to your death. What a good game.
What a great game. I feel like stuff like that makes us infuriating, but it's also what makes us like these kind of games.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I definitely don't speedrun this game just because people hate this game. Like, that is not enough to make a person run a game for a long period of time. But there is a joy I get thinking about how much everyone else hates this game and how much I love it. There is a sadistic pleasure in other people being like, oh god, Bubsy 3D, that game's terrible. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I play.
So this is the final stage. The whole point of this game was, well, I'm not ready to unpack that one either. But the story of this game is that Bubsy crash landed on the planet of the Woolies. Usually the Woolies come to him, but this time he crash landed on their planet while he's apparently an astronaut. I don't know. You're supposed to kill that mini boss right there in order to open up this wall, but they made the wall slanted. This is their fault. Anyway, so the whole point was us collecting rocket parts to rebuild our rocket. And so we have to get to the final boss in order to get the final rocket part to finish our rocket and leave the planet. I'm gonna hit this checkpoint really quickly. If I were doing a run where I was trying to play it safe, hitting this checkpoint right now would have been a real mistake. And the reason for that is because what I need to do is I need to hit those color switches in the right order. I can't for the life of me remember the color order. I could probably figure it out through trial and error. I mean, there's only, what, there's 4 of them, so there's only 12 combinations. And if I hit the checkpoint before I hit those switches, then the thing that they do, which is reveal a teleporter that takes me to the boss, I would have saved before the teleporter spawned, so every time I respawned, I would have to open the teleporter again. That would have been a real mistake. But we actually don't need the teleporter. Probably want the teleporter, but if you're real brave, this jump is extremely long. But if you line up really well, so if you make sure your jump is very straight, and you time your initial jump as late as possible, and you do a long jump into a glide, you can actually land at the base of the mountain in a way that it won't kill you. I want to see if I can get that to demonstrate it. Oh, that was way too early. The goal here is if I can land at the base of the mountain without sliding off right into the water, which is tricky, then I can turn the camera and climb up this wall. And the top of this wall is where the teleporter would have taken us. So doing this is probably, you know, if you consider the teleporter to be the intended way, this would probably save about 15 seconds or so. That was not a straight angle, but I still stuck the landing. So you can see here, for some reason, it will sometimes let you stick the landing. I'm here at the very base of the mountain. If I move an inch, I die. If I try to run up the hill, I die. If I run in any direction, I die. But if I just start jumping, I can climb to the top of it, and this is what the teleporter would have taken me to. So this saves some time. It is a bold strategy. If these are the strats you're going to use, that is a bold strategy because even the smallest misstep is death, and you've wasted a ton of time. So, anyway, let's move forward. I'm going to float across here and enter the boss fight. This boss fight is really, really tricky. So you've got 2 enemies here, and they are shooting at you. The only way to hurt them is to fire atoms at them, but the atoms are usually encased in these crystals, and so usually you can't grab them. But if you hit the switch, it removes the crystal for just long enough for you to grab one. The trick here, the secret sauce to getting this right, is that while you're holding the atom, you're invulnerable. And if you try to just hold the atom and turn, you can actually only hold it for a certain amount of time before it blows up in your hands. It's kind of a real cute feature. The game decided that if you hold on to your weapon for too long, it just blows up in your hands. If you are facing the wrong direction and you try to turn the camera around to face at the enemy, then you're almost certainly not going to have enough time to fire with any accuracy. You're mostly just going to be shooting blind. But if you jump backwards into the atom, you're already going to be facing the right direction. So the trick here, the secret sauce to doing this boss fight consistently, is to always jump backwards into the atoms so that you're already facing the direction you want to face and you don't have to like stress about it. Now, you have to kill 2 enemies here, and they are brutal. This is actually a really challenging boss fight. As much as I would say that this is a game that's fun and easy to learn, this is a grueling part to learn. Because every time you get hit, I mean, you've only got 3 hit points, and these enemies will really give you a hard time. But the game's pretty nice. If you kill one of the bosses, that boss will stay dead. So if you can recognize which boss is which, and you're able to make that educated decision, it's good to try to kill one before the other, right? Kill one at a time. It's just going to make your life easier. There's Esther. By the way, the bosses are named Polly and Esther, and I hate that so much.
That's a fantastic name.
Oh. So Esther will stay dead. So even if I were to die here, which is totally possible, this is a difficult boss fight. Even if I were to die here, Esther will stay dead. If I come back to this fight, any enemies that are still alive, so in this case Polly, if Polly is still alive, her health, I believe, will refill. But Esther will stay dead. The other kind of annoying part is that if you do adopt this strategy of backing up to get to the atoms so that you're already facing the right direction, you're kind of limited in which atoms you can choose. And so for that reason, if they spawn close enough to the atom, they'll get an invulnerability shield. If you grab an atom and they are very close to that atom, they can't be hurt. So it does limit you a little bit, but I feel like it's a more consistent strategy to do it that way. Grabbing this rocket is when time ends. So that's the end of the run. It's not the end of the tutorial. I do want to show, I guess, a few more things. But that is the end of the game. And I would say that some of the later levels can be really challenging, but for the most part, the appeal of this game is that you really only have to learn a handful of tricks, and those can be applied to the whole run.
Yeah, that actually felt like fairly straightforward overall.
Yeah, there's I mean, the theme is the same going over and over, so I'm gonna load again. It's gonna have taken away my file that has it all unlocked, so I'm just gonna put in the password really quickly.
While you're putting these in, and
yeah, go
for anybody who wants to learn this game and practice, these are the codes to learn how to practice the game. In that last fight, I know you touched on it briefly. For anybody who is practicing and doesn't want to do that jump at the end, just open up the teleporter and look at one of the runs on the leaderboard to figure out what the combo is.
Yeah, the world record doesn't doesn't do that. Doesn't open the teleporter, but any run below like second place does, because it's a really dumb strat. I have it in my PB because I had like, I think in my PB run, I think that I was about to start losing time on something, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna go for this Hail Mary strat, and
so I actually watched it recently. Yeah, you were losing time, and then you just decided to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think only the top 2 runs have it in there. Otherwise it's really easy. All of the switch puzzles like that are all 4 colors, so it's got yellow, green, red, blue. So you just need to write down what the colors are. It's really easy to learn. A few things I want to touch on are just kind of what to expect from a 100% run. Most of the levels are still just as straightforward. There's not a huge difference. The big changes are just, you have to be really comfortable with the wall climbs, because very often what's going to be happening is most of these routes, you get out of bounds one time and then you jump back in bounds to get to the end of the level. For most of these, if you're going to do the 100% route, you're going to be jumping in and out of bounds over and over. So like, for instance, for the first level here, if you did the 100% route, there's a segment that you could, I mean, obviously you could play all these levels as intended and not, go out of bounds or anything like that. But, for instance, the first rocket part is like right here out of bounds, like right next to us. But you have to go back in bounds to get it, and then you have to figure out where you're going to go from there. So once you're over here, I'm pretty sure it's like right over this wall. I haven't done 100% forever. But I do want to point out that it is a really cool category. I feel like sometimes people are put off by speedruns, sometimes when it feels like you don't really play much of the game. So there may be someone who's like looking at this and they're like, well, the tricks seem cool, but the problem is that you end up skipping every single level, and I don't like that. And in that case, I would say, really, give 100% a look. because the 100% route is like, you know, I think now the world record's maybe like 45 minutes, something like that. I fell in bounds. Anyway, here's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hit that wall. Go up here. But, you know, it's just finding more rocket parts in every single level, and it really does kind of flesh out the level a little more. You get to see more of it, get to see more of what's intended. If you've ever seen this game played casually, I hope that's how you experienced it rather than playing it casually yourself. But if you've ever seen this game played casually, you know that all of these levels are actually really involved. The speedrun is getting away scot-free by being able to just skip over things, you know, jump over any wall I want to, go however I want to get to the end. The other rocket part in this level, by the way, is right at the end of the level, so I'm showing the 100% route for the most part for this level. This level also is where it introduces you to the idea of the rocket parts, because you wouldn't know otherwise what the point is. And so this level kind of introduces the idea by, this is the intended path, and you can see that there's a little rocket right on the intended path. And so you'll collect it, and then Bubsy will do some little 10-second speech like, find all the rocket parts in every level. But now, we don't get to hear that because I died right after collecting the rocket part. It actually is kind of an interesting pain point in the 100% route, because if you get that audio to play, like don't forget to collect all the rocket parts in every single level, if that audio is playing and you hit the exit, the level waits for that audio to finish playing before it actually lets you end the level. So Bubsy's little like 10-second you know, rant about you've got to find 2 rocket parts in every single level. It's like, okay, move it along, Bubsy, shut up.
I've already through the teleporter, let me go.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. That's Bubsy 3D for you. Now I will tell you, as I've been mentioning throughout this run, and I would love to have shown it off a little more, but it's kind of a technical move that I never really got good at. There is an infinite jump trick, which if you go on the speedrun.com page, there's a link to a Bubsy 3D help Discord, which you can join. Tyler's in there and would be happy to explain, hopefully to me later, and to you as well, what the inputs are to get that infinite jump working. And some of these levels, a few of them have some really kind of annoying parts to them. I don't think that the Days of Thunder level, for instance, the one with all the cars, I don't think that level's very fun. It's a lot of just riding in cars with boys, and being able to just run over to where the exit is and infinite jump up to the end and beat the level in like 30 seconds is a chef's kiss, baby. That's all I got. You have any questions that you may want to think on behalf of the viewer who might actually be interested in learning this? I do think this is a really good game to learn, by the way. You may think that it's a bit that we're sitting here playing Bubsy 3D, but I think it's a good game.
Yeah, so I guess to touch on that, like, the reason I had you on is because I think this is actually, like, a legitimately good game for people to pick up. Like, this isn't a joke. Like, sure, yes, there is an anniversary tomorrow, which is why I decided to have it on now instead of, like, later down the line, but I do think this is a relatively, like, cool game to speedrun. So, like, yes, we both do like some bad games. We're not memeing when we say, like, hey, play this game. Like, no, the reason we like these games is because they're legitimately fun to play and speedrun. So, yeah.
I think that's the big thing. You know, I've speedrun lots of games because they are bad games, and, you know, that'll keep my attention for a week at most. I've been speedrunning Bubsy 3D since 2016, maybe? I've been speedrunning a long time. I don't know when I first started, but I've been speedrunning for a long time, and the only way that a game can keep my attention for that long is that there's got to be something special about it. And this game is legitimately challenging to play fast, and it has a lot of room for improvement. So even when you get a PB, it's easy to identify, okay, if I do this a little faster, if I improve this spot, if I go for something slightly riskier, I can improve my run. And those are always really rewarding games to learn.
Yeah, I think, like, a lot of what makes a speed run good is being able to identify, like, this is what I did well, this is how I can improve, and I know the steps that I can take to actually improve that.
Right.
Having a community also helps. There's a few games that I like nobody else has picked up that I've routed. It's like, if somebody else picks it up. But like, yeah, stuff like Bubsy, stuff like Grinch, where there's a very clear cut. I know what I did wrong here, and I want to improve on that. It makes speedrunning a lot more enjoyable. Yeah.
Go
So
and
what
watch Tyler's world record. He's a huge memer. His video is silly, but he is a truly accomplished speedrunner of this game. I mean, I don't want to understate that. When I first picked this game up, I was by far the best at it. Zindictive was the other active runner at the time, and he was very good. He really held on to his 100% record for a long time. But the any percent record, every time it would get beaten, I would just like buckle down and I would improve my run by another 2 minutes. Not to like boast on myself. I'm setting up a larger point here, but not to boast on myself. But I was really by far the best speedrunner of this game for a fairly long time, and I'm saying that so that you recognize that when I say that Tyler makes me look like a very bad speedrunner, that's to show you how good his run actually is and how impressive to watch it is.
Which I guess it brings to another point, which I don't know how often it gets talked about, but just because there is a world record in place doesn't mean that it is like the best run possible. Like, it is very possible for anybody watching right now to pick up a game, and if you practice enough, you can get into those top times. You can get to a world record just because you were dedicated or you liked the game enough to put the time into it. This one I'm talking, like, I'm not 100% sure on this, but if I remember correctly, one of the SM64 leaderboards got beaten within the past, like, 6 months by somebody I'd never heard of, and to me, I know all the SM64 runners. Like, there's a handful of runners who are like, yeah, those are the SM64 runners, so to hear a new name on that leaderboard was wild. I might be mistaken SM64 for a different Mario game, but the point remains the same. Like,
no, I definitely understand your point. Yeah, I mean, none of my runs I ever did were unbeatable, but at the time I always thought they were very good, and then someone new would come along and put in the effort to actually beat my time. And every time I would put in the effort to try to beat it back, and Tyler's run's not perfect either. His run is definitely improvable, and if you felt motivated to learn it, you could certainly. I do not believe it's anywhere nearly outside the realm of possibility that you could beat his run, but it is still an incredibly impressive run and an achievement worth watching.
Getting back to the question you had a long time ago before we started going on about, how to get into speedrunning and how to approach it. I think you did a pretty good job explaining everything. I guess the only thing I didn't notice it when you restarted. How many lives do you start with, like, in a normal playthrough?
I think it's just 3.
Okay.
But you don't have to go very far out of your way very often to pick up more lives. They're usually on the critical path, so you can easily end the game with 9 lives. Without it being too difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, and so that is another thing that I just want to point out. Like, you don't, just because the speedrun does something one way, you can add in your own safety or like backups to make the runs go smoother. I'm going, again, because you're familiar with the Grinch, I'm going to go back to that. In the Grinch, there is an ammo system, and you're technically only supposed to go for the exact amount you need. And I will just pick up extras because I'd rather have more ammo than not have ammo.
Why not?
Yeah, so it would be the same thing as with lives here. If it's, if you're concerned about having lives later in the run, just pick up some extra lives. Like, at the end of the day, when you're learning, just make it easier for yourself, because it doesn't matter if you get, like, I don't know what a a starting time would be for Bubsy. But if you get like an hour in any percent,
Yeah.
well, you have room to improve, and you're still practicing. So
1 hour is still an incredible accomplishment. This game, you know, I think once you learn it, it's not too bad, but this game is still very challenging. It's not beating the game on its own is something that you should be commended for. It can be difficult to accomplish. So if you can beat this game in an hour, that's something to be really proud of. And you know, you can accomplish that kind of time with backup strats. You can accomplish it with deaths. You can accomplish it with going the wrong way and figuring out where to go. I mean, in an hour 18, I went through the whole game, and I stopped and talked and redid levels several times. And I mean, obviously, I've got more experience, but that's just to demonstrate that, I mean, you can get a pretty good time, even if you make mistakes along the way or take your time on something.
Yeah, so just pick up a game, play it, practice it. If you want to run it, just run it however you want to in order to, get better at it.
I will say, I guess to wrap up this point, if you do want to learn the game, on speedrun.com there are video playlists of guides. So there's an old playlist that has old routes that were come up with by Nick's report. Tyler has made a playlist of improvements to those routes, so you can compare them against one another. A lot of what I've shown you today has been what I would consider safer or slightly older routes. If you want to convert to better routes as you learn the game, it is not very hard. Typically, once you've learned the tricks, it's as easy as watching what someone else does and just trying to reproduce it. It's not terribly difficult. I don't know how long ago he did so, but Tyler has made a help Discord that you can even join. You're welcome to message me and ask questions if you have them, but that help Discord is also a great place to start.
Do you have any other closing statements before we wrap up here?
Play Bubsy 3. It's fun. Also, I guess happy
Bubsy
anniversary
3D.
tomorrow.
Yeah, 25 years tomorrow.
Wild.
Wild. So we do have one more game to learn tonight. We're going to be learning Silent Hill with Punchy. So we're going to take a quick break while we get set up for that. Everybody watching, you want to, get up, take a quick break, get some water, stretch, get the muscle or the blood flowing through your muscles. Right before we go to our break, I'd like to remind everybody that the Frost Fatale Game and Volunteer submissions will be open from the 2nd of November to the 14th, so you can go to gamesdonequick.com for more information from that. And we do have a new YouTube channel called GDQ Summit Best Segment. It's a highlight channel, so it'll have regular uploads same time as our main channel. It'll just have small digestible highlight reels for all of our shows and for our main events. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be here with Silent Hill and Punchy. Thank you so much, Oth. I've really enjoyed this.
Take care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GDQ Hotfix. This is How to Train a Speedrunner, and we are joined by Punchy for Silent Hill here because tomorrow is Halloween. Figured we should have some kind of spooky game. So, got Punchy here with Silent Hill. How are you doing, Punchy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, Silent Hill, do you have anything you want to say about it before we start?
The tutorial for this starts on the options menu, so that's where this will begin. That's where you should begin, on the options menu for every game. That's all you got to know about this going in.
As I am excited. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm accounting anyway. I'm used to it at this point. 3, 2, 1, beginner tutorial. Right, so hello everyone. This is Silent Hill. This will be a tutorial for the standard any percent type category. It's called NG Easy. Silent Hill speedrunning is actually so old that it predates any percent nomenclature. Go figure. So we begin on the options menu because Silent Hill is a rare beast of a PlayStation 1 game and it has fully rebindable controls. You may notice I have 3 buttons bound to skip. This is important. So enter as your standard use key. It should be bound to skip as well because it allows you to skip text and use items at the same time. This is efficient. And you should also probably unbind skip from the pause button because by default pause and skip are bound to start, both of them. You don't want to have pausing occurring by accident if you mash skip too hard when trying to skip a cutscene. Every other control can be bound however you like. Everyone picks different stuff, but those are the 2 key points. And you will save plenty of time by just having skip and enter on the same button. This is important. It sounds very menial, but it's not, I assure you. The other thing to do is when you're in the options menu, tap a shoulder button to enter the extra options menu. The important thing here is walk-run control. Silent Hill is a tank control game, and you want to be running more often than not. In fact, 99% of the time you want to be running. There is a control for that in the options called walk-run control. It should be set to reverse. That means you will run by default and have to hold your run key to walk. Because you want to be running most of the time, this will save you from having to, be holding down a button the entire game. So that is the basics of how you should configure your controls for this run going in. And it's important that you have those two down because it makes a lot of difference going in. Now we'll actually start the run. This run is done on the easy difficulty, but the strategies don't actually change that much. So let's actually start the gameplay. Oh, apparently, hang on. Forgot to get me to screen share on the Discord.
Yeah, that was.
Oh dear, how do I do that then?
I started switching through all of my tabs. I'm like, where is the game? Oh.
How do I do that? I've not had to do this before on Discord with my capture card. Oh, live maintenance.
We'll figure it out. Just start the run. We'll figure it out.
Well, that's the opening cutscene anyway. Before I launch into sort of like the actual strategies, it is important to go over the basics of how to move in Silent Hill. Because you may think it looks like a Resident Evil game. You turn with the left and right, you run forward and backwards. But it may look like Resident Evil style controls, but it ain't tight like a Resident Evil. And what I mean with this is that Harry walks with momentum. If you run forward for any length of time and then come to a stop, he stumbles forward like that, you see. This makes stopping and turning on a dime quite difficult. You are, like, committed to your running direction. So that's something to be aware of. But this stumble can be cancelled into picking up an item or something, so it can be ideal in certain situations. It's important to know this. And also, if you run straight into a wall, Harry will bonk the wall like so. So you should try and avoid running flat at walls. A lot of this game is trying to avoid these bonking motions. The other thing to know is that when doing a quick turn, you should hold down your walk button. In my case, it's bound to triangle, so I would hold down triangle and then tap L1 and R1 to perform a quick turn. This is because if you don't have it while walking, the frame window to perform a successful quick turn is much smaller for some reason. I'm good at it, is the problem with this. But otherwise, if you're a little off with your timing, you'll start doing a strafe instead of a quick turn, which is not ideal. If you hold it down and do it, it is much easier. You see? That is important. Otherwise, you'll miss it all the time. I don't know why it works the way it does, but that is how it works. Now that we have the basics of movement down, let's actually, play the video game. This is a cutscene. You can mash skip to get through these. Not all of them can be skipped. You can skip pre-renders, but not, in-game cutscenes. Or you can skip some of them. It's half and half. It's really weird. I'm, fiddling with stuff on my other computer here. I'll figure out the screen share thing.
Also, we've got it, don't worry.
Keen-eyed observers may notice I'm playing the Japanese version as well. That's not important in the slightest. Version doesn't matter. You can play the American... Well, it does matter, but the fact I'm playing Japanese specifically has no importance. I just happen to have the Japanese version. The good versions to run on are most American copies and any Japanese copy. I'm not American. I just happen to have a Japanese copy. It was cheaper, you see. So at the start of the game here, you just gotta run through these alleyways. Sorry. Go.
Oh no! So I was gonna say, what makes it the good card to run on? What's the difference between a bad American
glitch
copy?
that will come up about 40 minutes in or something.
Okay.
There was a version update to this game. It was patched.
Oh, so the greatest hits or something is
Yes.
don't use that copy.
It's exactly like that, I think. There's a guide on speedrun.com that lists the versions and their cover art and disc art, so you know which version you've got and which one has the glitch and which one doesn't, but I don't have it memorized. Alright, so entering this segment, the thing you want to do quickly here is die as fast as possible. And the way you'll do this is by holding down left strafe while tapping left D-pad. This will cause you to strafe into an enemy who should hopefully grab you in the kneecaps. Just like that. That's good luck. And then you get slashed, and then eventually Harry will tip over and die. Sometimes they don't grab you. It's luck-based. Anything with enemy AI in this game is luck-based, which is a lot of it, which is kind of unfortunate. If you get the bad RNG, then either deal with it because it's a couple of seconds lost, or just cry and reset. I don't know, you're a minute in. I don't usually advocate resetting because it's supposed to be a beginner tutorial kind of thing, and finishing a run is far more important than doing it well. but it is what it is. Right, so immediately on gaining control in the cafe, press select, open your menu, and equip the gun. You'll need this. These health drinks are not required to progress this. You need the flashlight, the map, but take these health drinks if you're new to the run, because it grants you a buffer for healing later. You do also need the knife. We're never going to need the knife, but you do need to pick it up. People ask me that all the time, why do you pick up the knife? The game will not let you leave without it. And during this cutscene, which cannot be skipped, you should hold down R2 so that Harry immediately aims his gun because an enemy is about to burst through the window. Excuse me. And there is no language option in the Japanese version, for the person in chat asking. So immediately hold down R2 and your fire button to immediately fire at the enemy, and you should kill it within anywhere from 4 to 6 hits. Enemy health in this game is slightly random. The values are in a guidebook. That varies between 4 and 6 hits, but never more.
For a lot of the... Sorry, go ahead.
Once you have the radio, you can leave, and you need to start finding the 3 keys. You don't need to find the map that tells you where the 3 keys are first. You can just go find them. Anyway.
So I was going to ask, I know a lot of earlier games, like, that kind of stuff is tied to a seed. Is there, like, a seed you have to worry about in Silent Hill, or...?
No, we don't have anything on the books for RNG manipulation in this game, sadly.
Makes it easier for a beginner to learn, though.
True. There's rakes of RNG in this game, though. Like, tons of stuff is random. That's an example of a stumble cancel to pick up an item. You have to time the release of your D-pad somewhat specifically for that, but it's not that hard. The timing is semi-specific, but it's not, like, brutal. You just gotta stumble over it and mash use while you do it.
And eventually you'll get the hang of it.
You'll get the hang of it, but it's not too big of a deal if you miss it. Silent Hill is a very easy game to pick up. It's often a lot of people's, like, first speed game, I find, in the horror scene, because it's pretty easy to finish a run of. Obviously, at the top level, this game is like a grind fest for single frames, because aren't survival horror games always like that? But it's pretty easy to get a run that's relatively decent without too much stress. Because it's not that complicated. You just gotta run places and pick up stuff. Like, here's another key in a trunk. This guy may or may not chase you. These enemies, it's random whether or not they choose to do so. You can perform evasive maneuvers by swerving wildly. It's, again, a thing you have to get the sense for. Or they can just leave you alone, which is very convenient when it happens. Just like that. There's another enemy slightly off camera to the right. Again, whether or not I draw his aggro is a bit random, because any enemies in this game just kind of wander around. You see, I'm doing evasive maneuvers there, swerving from side to side so he doesn't end up directly over my head. Otherwise, he'll try and take a swing at me, and I will lose health. And more importantly, time. You can never really predict enemies. You can get... Nothing in this game is, like, 100% consistent because of how enemies work. They wander around. They do stuff arbitrarily. So sometimes they can just be in very inconvenient places. But it works more often than it doesn't. But it won't work that one time. So whenever you're doing, like, a certain dodge that I will be teaching later in the run, and you've got it down most of the time, but that one time it just doesn't work, and you think, oh, did I do something wrong? Maybe, but maybe not. Sometimes you need that confidence to be like, no, that wasn't my fault, and then you move on from it. Because Silent Hill is just like that.
Things will work most of the time, hopefully.
Things will work 90% of the time, but there's always that small chance. Because every time you enter a room in Silent Hill, enemy facing direction is randomly determined, and then they just sort of wander in that direction. Most angles will work, but there's that one time they just happen to walk straight into your crotch.
Okay.
To pick up this note at the end of the road, the navigation is something you just sort of learn via muscle memory, like knowing where to go and what to pick up and what to do. Just, like, follow the steps as presented. There's not much to teach here. This is just sort of the minimum route. This is where you gotta go, the keys you gotta pick up. There's nothing to sort of, like, make complicated here. Just go here, do stuff. You'll get lost the first time and get confused about where to go. Try to release the D-pad before you hit the door, so that Harry will stumble but stop just before he touches the door. Because if you run straight into the door, you'll face plant it directly, and that loses you time. Every time you face plant a door and don't quite get in the door, you lose about half a second, and that can really add up over time. That's what distinguishes, like, good runners from great runners, is how many times they don't black the wall. Turn your light off here as you round the corner. This does require you to learn the navigation in the dark. This is the difficult part of these runs, is learning how to do stuff while effectively blind. Because flashlight determines enemy aggro, and sometimes dealing with enemy aggro is just not worth the trouble. So turning your flashlight off can drop the enemy aggro, but you also have to know very well what you're doing. I'm trying to proceed to the right side of the street here. You can turn the flashlight on and off as is to see what you're doing, and then turn it back off again when you get to the other side. Because there is an air screamer enemy here. Those are the flying pterodactyl-looking dudes. Once you're just about out of range, you can turn it back on. No, I can hear them flapping. I should turn it back off again. If you hear them flapping, they've become aware of you, and you should turn your flashlight back off until you stop hearing it, and you can turn it back on again. They can see where you're going again. That's how you avoid getting through without being hassled by them. That's all well and good. Right. We are now arriving at school. The school is paradoxically one of the more difficult areas in the game, despite being the first, because the dodges here are somewhat specific. We will keep our flashlight on, and it is actually important that you keep your flashlight on for this first dodge as we enter this set of double doors. As you enter, turn up left on the D-pad, slightly, and then turn up right and go around this enemy. That is quite consistent, but again is somewhat random based on the facing direction of the enemy, so you may have to adjust subtly depending on where he is. You can feel it out, but generally speaking, if you apply... You can go very wide to make sure it works. When you start trying to do it very finely, that's where you have to sort of use your game knowledge to make subtle adjustments. We pick up a chemical in that room, use it on this hand. Oh, all the while, I know about text boxes. All the while I'm using text boxes, I'm holding down the X button, which I have bound to just skip and nothing else, while pressing square, which is my use key, because if you hold down the X button, the skip button, while you press use, it will immediately draw in all the text and then immediately pick up the item as soon as you press square, so you can get through item pick-up text boxes even faster that way. I paused here because there's a dodge coming up. Turn your light off before you enter this room, and turn to the forward right so that you get past that guy without him touching you. Again, works 95% of the time. Sometimes he'll just be in the way. Tough luck. Happens.
And so if you get caught on any of these, you just lose a little bit of health and time, and then you keep going?
Yeah. You have lots of health to play with. Going back through, same thing here. Turn up left slightly, then turn up right and walk around that guy. It works consistently every time. We can do it back again if we feel like it. Turn the light off. Go to the right. Works again. We turn back in the room. A little up left, a little up right, and then we turn around the guy. It works most of the time. It works most of the time. It's relatively consistent as far as dodges go. And in this hallway, you want to keep to the left here to bait that guy into being left so you can swerve around him like that. Yeah, if any of these don't work, getting hit is not such a big deal. All right, these puzzles. Any puzzle where you have a cursor active on the screen, you should use the analog stick, because the analog stick movement is inexplicably faster than D-pad movement. I don't know why, it just is. So for this puzzle, you want to hit you need to hit the keys in a certain order, as dictated by a puzzle. And you don't want to skip that cutscene immediately, because if you skip it frame perfectly, you end up facing the wrong direction. Again, I don't know why. Turn your flashlight off before you leave this room, and hold upright so that you go towards the left wall. Oh, I got a little caught there, but it was okay. I got past. Keep the light off. Again, hold to the upright to squeeze past this enemy here. There he is, little guy. These enemies look different in the American version, but they function identically. Some people say they're harder because they're like red and bloodier looking. It's not true. I don't know why. Keep your flashlight on as you enter this room. Walk one step, and then turn your flashlight off and run forward. This is a slightly more complicated one, so I'll do it again for the sake of demonstration. When going back through this room, turn your flashlight off and then turn slightly to the left to get past them on the way through. This one, keep your flashlight on. When you enter the room, keep the flashlight on. Walk one step by holding your walk button, then turn your flashlight off and continue to run forward to go around the corner. That enemy took a swing at me as I went through. And that will work most of the time. That's probably the most unreliable dodge of these ones, but it's still pretty reliable. May not be emphasizing the unreliability of these, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from it, that puzzle, is that always going to be the same solution?
Yes.
So once you've okay.
The piano, all puzzles in this game have fixed solutions. They didn't introduce random puzzle solutions until the second game.
Okay.
And they're also the same on all difficulties. There are no, like, difficulty-based puzzles in this one.
Okay, perfect. So once you know it, you know it.
Yes. You just get the muscle memory down for where to move and when to hit button. Once again, walk one step, turn flashlight off, turn to the right to squeeze around the corner before he grabs you. Clean as, clean as. So no damage for the normal school. That's pretty good. It can be somewhat challenging to avoid taking damage for the first part of the school, so it's not too uncommon to get through with a couple of hits.
Where am I?
Taking a moment there to take a drink. Why not? Right, so now we're in the Nightmare School, which, if you ask me, is actually slightly easier. Because now the rooms are big. Let's go through these sequence of doors. Collect this card. This card has a very funny hitbox. If you're not exactly dead on, you'll get a message that says the cards are scattered instead of picking up the golden card instead in the middle like you want. It's very particular, very annoying. Make sure to turn your flashlight off before you enter this room, and you just need to hold forward here. Believe in the heart of the dodge, and you'll get through. When you reach the end of the hallway, you got to turn left into this small alcove here, and touch the door, and use the golden card to unlock this one. That is all good. Turn slightly right here. And this is where we get the shotgun. As this cutscene plays, hold down the walk key and begin to mash your use button. This will allow you to take one short step forward towards the shotgun and immediately pick it up. If you run forward, you might overshoot, and that's a problem. There's a nice quick turn. Turn to the left through here. Oh, almost got hit there. Almost went too far forward there. This door triggers a cutscene, so you skip it immediately by pressing skip, and then quick turn and head back out the same door. Unlock this door. Left here and grab a nice ball. We need it later. And leave the way you came. Advance up the stairs. I recommend using the walk key here to take a slightly tighter turn around the staircase. You don't have to, it's just faster. So here you want to take a slightly tight corner and hopefully stumble cancel while investigating the hole with your use key, because you need to look at the hole to see that there's a key in it. And only then will the game allow you to use a rubber ball on this hole to cover it up. And while you're in this menu, you should equip the shotgun. We try to minimize unnecessary menu opening and closing in this game because it does count against the clock, obviously. So while you are in this menu, equip your shotgun, because that is the gun you will be using for the entire speedrun, as it is the best weapon in the game. All you need is one. So once you've plugged the hole, use the valve. This cutscene is inexplicably unskippable. It's one of the handful that aren't. They really liked their water tech. Here's one games, man. Door opener simulator. It's all about doors with Silent Hill. It's all about doors. You gotta learn about doors. Every door in this game... See, here's an example of a door that works differently. If you run straight out this door, you bonk. That's no good. You don't want that. That's bad door. What you need is good door. You should seek for good door instead. So what you gotta do is you gotta come at it from a slight angle, like that. Not like that, actually. That's not how you do it. That's too far to the left. Try that again. Get the good door angle. Like that. No bonk. That's the good door. That's what you seek. You can't just walk at doors straight on. That's like too forward. You gotta come at it from a side angle sometimes. Every door in this game behaves a little differently, and the only way to learn it is to learn it. You gotta memorize them all. Turn your flashlight off on the way down, and again, same dodge as last time, just head slightly to the right and head back into the courtyard to get the key that you flushed out of the drain. And on the way back into this room, the dodge is slightly different than it was in the normal world. You just hold forward here. Hold forward, and then turn to the left. Rather than trying to sort of cut the corner. Cutting the corner... That enemy is slightly further forward, so trying to cut the corner too tightly will not work compared to the normal world version. Turn up left here almost immediately to avoid running into that enemy head-on. That's another door where you got to come at it from like sort of a right side angle. If you try and hit it head-on, you'll bounce off it, so don't do that. Pick up this shotgun ammo. Because we're playing on easy mode, every shotgun box will give you 2 times the amount of ammo it normally would instead of 1. This is often mistaken for cheating because people think you're using the bullet increase New Game Plus function. It's not. It's a default function of easy mode.
Okay. You just get a bunch more ammo. Is the ammo conservation in this like something you really have to try and manage, or do you just get enough in
It's
easy?
pretty forgiving even if you do sort of the quote-unquote advanced route where you only pick up 2 boxes of ammo. You've got plenty to waste. But since this is a beginner route, I will point out a couple of extra boxes you can pick up if you're really, like, not confident.
Okay.
And with a couple of extra boxes, you will have plenty. You could whiff, like, barrels of the stuff and it would be no problem. This dodge turn to the right on the way out. There's an enemy slightly off screen. He wasn't even on camera for long enough for me to make a point out of it. There's another health drink you can pick up here if you've taken some damage and need to heal, just for safety. If things are going well, you won't need it, but if you've gotten hit a bunch, it might be wise to consider healing, because obviously death voids the run, because it makes it not single segment, as it kicks you out to the main menu.
Is there, like, do you start walking slower? Is there, I guess
No.
I haven't seen a health bar because
There
you
is
haven't
no,
taken any
like,
damage.
unlike Resident Evil, there's no, like, sort of caution animation or danger animation. You just have to know by opening the menu and looking at the indicator in the top left. Or, if you have vibration turned on, the controller will actually beat. Like a heartbeat. It'll go dun-dun.
Okay.
That's how you can tell without opening the menu what your health status is. More ideally, just don't get hit. But that, you know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
happens. This is where you can pick up your backup ammo if you're not confident. Instead of going through the right door here, which is what we do to progress the game, you could enter this left door instead. You enter a little room where there's 2 boxes of ammo, and that will be more than enough for the entire rest of the run. There's also an ampule here. This restores your health to full. That'll also probably do you for health for the rest of the game as well. Because you have quite a lot of health to play with in easy already, and a full heal helps immeasurably. So for this puzzle, this is in Japanese, so I'm going to have to explain myself here. You have to hit on the right valve, turn it to the left twice. That's the top option. I'm assuming you guys can't read Japanese. I think it's arranged this way in English as well. And on the left valve, turn it to the right once. And that's the second option. And that's the puzzle. And that will open the way to the first boss fight.
And I imagine the menu's the same in an English version of the game.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. The first thing you want to do in this boss fight, skip the cutscene, run forward, and immediately try and get 3 close-range shotgun shots off. They gotta be close. They don't gotta be that close. 3 shots will do from, like, relatively close range, and then he starts pulsating a little bit. Wait it out. And then take a step back when he opens, fire 2 shots off, and that's that boss done completely, because he takes critical damage when the mouth is open. Then he dies quickly.
Oh, wow.
And while this is happening, I'm going to strafe around his corpse for no reason other than because I think it's funny.
I mean, that's an
anything during
important
that.
part of the run, right? Is just
Oh, yeah,
finding
you
your
gotta-
own little joys and stuff.
You gotta dance. Alright. Skip this cutscene, pick up this key. Make sure you pick up this key. The game will not prevent you from leaving without it, and you will look very silly 10 minutes from now. After you skip this cutscene, perform a quick turn immediately by holding your walk key and pressing the strafe buttons. As I explained earlier. There you go. All these doors have to be unlocked on the way out for some reason, so mashing your use key will help you in clearing these text boxes quickly. And that is the first sort of dungeon of the game. I'm, like, inclined to call them dungeons, I guess. I don't know, the Zelda nomenclature's wearing off on me. It's the first major area. So we head out back onto the streets. And we now progress to the second area, the hospital, where there are more fun games. We learn sort of more complicated tech in the hospital, like pushing past enemies who are just in your way by default. But for now, we're in daytime Silent Hill, which means you can't use your flashlight, so enemies will always aggro to you by default, so you gotta watch out for that. Dogs will almost never hit you as long as you don't stop moving. The hitbox on them is actually very forgiving. As long as you're in constant motion, generally speaking, they can't touch you. Proceed through here, you don't need to worry about doors so much. Those ones are pretty permissive of the angle you run into them at. Doors in this game. It all adds up. It's all about doors. Oh, I hear an enemy flapping. Pay attention to the audio when you run this, because you should be able to hear enemies flapping in the distance, which might indicate that they're aggroed to you, etc., etc., but maybe not. You don't know. And again, it's all random, and ideally, things don't bother you in general, but sometimes they will. You gotta learn how to deal with that. See, right now, that this guy's targeting is broken because I swerved weirdly, so he's just having a great time. But that's actually good that his targeting broke, because the game actually will not allow you to be tracked by more than one flying dude at the same time, so while he's, like, flying around being confused up there, it prevents the second enemy from tracking you. That's lucky if you can get it. It doesn't necessarily save any time, it just saves, like, a potential problem.
So is that the same for like every enemy? Can only one enemy target you at a time, or?
It's only the flying dudes that have that rule.
Okay.
And while we're in the church, hold up right during this cutscene. That you can turn towards the plinth. I don't know what you call one of these in a church. Quick turn. Then on the way out, try and hit this door towards the center, but with a sort of left-facing angle going in. Because if you try and hit it straight on, most of the time you'll bounce off it. I don't want to hit it at like a 45-degree angle. These are not major time saves. If you're a beginner, you don't need to stress about them too much, but it is something that will start to add up a lot over the course of a run, if it is not paid attention to.
But it's also something you'll pick up the more runs you do.
You'll pick up. Pay attention to it. It's one of those like key points of Silent Hill running, since sort of the point-to-point navigation is not so complicated. How the hell do you know? Do you have any idea where to go on your first time through? You don't. Hopefully, I would assume that when you're speedrunning, that it is not your first time through the game. Right, so in the control room runs at like -3 frames per second, making navigation towards the control desk here quite difficult. Walking here can be a good idea just to make sure you get a clean line up to it. Ideally, you can just run straight in one smooth motion, but what is very likely to happen is that what will happen is I will demonstrate for the purposes of this, is what happens is you'll get stuck on this corner here. Like, you see I'm stuck right now. This isn't close enough. If I try and open my inventory and use the key here, it'll be like, no, you're not close enough, you fool. You need to be straight in front of it, like so. You don't want to get caught on this corner. That's no good. You want to avoid that. So here is a spare health drink that you can use if you want to. It's there. There's lots of backup health in this run. You shouldn't worry about dying. Okay, with the bridge lowered, we can proceed to the other side of town. And move on to the next major area of the game. There's no fancy tech involved with just these large movement sections like this where you're just running from street to street. Just point in the direction you want to go and go there. Fortunately, there's no fancy tech. It makes Silent Hill very easy to pick up, but also sometimes you just hold forward for a minute.
Yeah, it's just a lot of... I wish there was something I could be doing right now,
Big
but I'm
open
just
spaces.
running.
There's no, like, repeatedly rolling like in Ocarina of Time or something. I don't know, I've got Zelda on the brain, but I do. Anyway, we're in the hospital. And now in the hospital. Skip a cutscene, skip 2 cutscenes in fact, and then quick turn immediately because we want to exit out via this back door rather than the door it immediately faces you towards. And we're going to perform some setup, quote-unquote, for a glitch later. But first we're going to collect this key. This is just normal game progression stuff. We need it. So the fastest ending in this game, this is where the topic of multiple endings comes up. The fastest ending in this game is the bad plus ending. It's slightly better than the worst ending. We pick up this plastic bottle, and in the next room over, we collect a mysterious liquid on the floor. We try to, anyway. There we go. You need this liquid for a glitch later. That glitch will also, incidentally, activate the plus variant of the ending, because there's 2 endings. There's bad and there's good. Simple, right? But there's also plus, which is determined by whether or not you use the red liquid to cure someone of, like, a demon parasitism later in the game. But we can do that with a glitch, which enables us to skip a certain section of the game. But it also uniquely clears us for getting the plus ending. So, funny how that works out. Getting a slightly better ending is a little bit faster than getting just the worst ending. For this section, you do need to touch the locked door and then immediately head back into the elevator. You need to hit floors 2 and 3. See that they're both locked. You have to actually use the doors. You can't just visit the floors. And then when you go into the elevator again for the second time, ooh, mysterious floor 4 has appeared. Spooky. But that's the trigger, is touching the door. You gotta do it on both floors and both ways. So now you're in Rusty Hospital. The primary enemy to deal with in the Rusty Hospital is the nurses, and the nurses have knives, or well, they're scalpels, I think, but still, bladed things. They do a lot of damage. Don't get sliced. I think short of getting shot, they do the most damage in the game. Enter this bathroom, pick up a blue plate. You need them for solving a puzzle. into this storeroom on the right here. Any sort of room off the beaten path usually doesn't contain anything of much value. You can safely just follow this route as is. Getting into this room can be difficult because that nurse may or may not be blocking the way. She was kind of blocking about half the door there, so you saw I turned in very sharply to make sure I was sort of within the door's acceptable activation range, but without being close enough to the nurse. That's something that will more or less vary depending on what you gauge the distance to be, and sometimes she will just be in the way and there's nothing you can do. On the way out, you might get grabbed on the way out automatically, depending on whether or not she spawns immediately facing you. That is, again, something that just happens. But once you escape, go to the first floor. And if you're running really, really low on health somehow and you're very not confident in your, dodging ability, there's 3 health drinks in this vending machine. You have plenty of health to play with in this run. Plenty.
Is there, a maximum inventory for how many you can hold?
No, it's completely limitless. You can hold, 60 of the things if you want. A lot of survival horror games are characterized by an inventory limit. This game Silent Hill has never had one, now that I think about it. Anyway, in this room, we're gonna get a lighter. You want to run straight forward. Only hold the forward key. And then pick up the lighter and leave, or you can get stuck. That's fun. I got stabbed, the one thing I said not to do. She was very aggressive. How unfortunate. Oh well, don't worry about it. Entering this room, take 1 step forward and immediately open the menu because that's close enough to use the blood pack. Most things in this game are quite finicky about where they're used from. This one is bewilderingly permissive. You don't need to be anywhere close for that one to work. But you need to at least take 1 step forward. Has to be 1. Can't be 0. But now that we have all 4 of the plates that we need, just gotta put them in. Unfortunately, they sort into the menu in a convenient order. So you can just mash through the menu when opening. First one goes top left, second one goes bottom right, third one goes top right, and the final one goes bottom left. Alright, and this next strategy coming up here is called Nurse Push. And Nurse Push can be a bit complicated and difficult to explain. It doesn't actually save that much time, but it is unavoidably a thing. What you want to do is you want to enter the room and start holding aim and walk at the same time so that you walk into the enemy to try and push them. Then fire, then wait, then fire again. This enables you to push past the nurse while she's dying to get through the door. That was actually pretty good. I delayed it a lot to make sure I got through, but I got through. And now she's dead on the way back, so she's not in the way. If she's too far forward, which can happen randomly, it can be impossible to get this, but sometimes you gotta push more, depending on how far back she is, and sometimes you barely need to push at all. So knowing how much you can push your luck, proverbially speaking, is something you just have to gauge. But you don't immediately run in and start firing at her. What you don't do is you don't run in, fire 2 shots, and then try and push past her instantly. You need to sort of space them out a bit so that you have time to push her out of the way. If you're too quick on the draw and you don't sort of have a little bit of patience with it, you'll never get through quickly. And it's slow to get pushed back by her, because then you gotta wait out her entire death animation, which is no good. Anyway, we collect the other key items we need here, and we head to the basement. We now have a key. That is a very confusing camera angle. My apologies. We push this shelf, now that we have everything we need.
This brings up a great question. Are you managing the camera a lot while you're going, or is this...
Somewhat. Different runners do different things for this, so it's sort of hard to tutorialize, but there is a button, L2 by default, I haven't changed it, sort of changes the camera to be behind Harry, and holding it on entering a room gives a different camera angle because the camera will sort of adjust going into it. And whether or not I hold L2 going into a room to get a camera angle in particular is totally dependent on the room, but it's also dependent on me.
Okay.
I don't do it here because the camera angle is pretty much all right, but I do it in this room so I can see slightly more in front of me. But you may or may not feel the need to do the same things that I do.
Yeah, so the camera angle is more of a feel it out for yourself and figure out what works best
it's hard
for
to
you.
tutorialize exactly what you should do with this. I have preferences, but people do different things. I like the camera to mostly stay behind Harry because I would like to be able to see where I'm going. I think this is a reasonable request. If you didn't pick up the extra ammo in the school basement, this is your second ammo box and the last one you're going to pick up the whole run. because every box contains 12 shotgun shells, so 4 times 12 is a large number. It's plenty of shots. You're not going to fire that many in this run. And that's all we need for the hospital. So you're going to try and curve around this guy. He's nowhere near the door. You may or may not be able to get that as a tight a turn around the corner. Sometimes you may just have to go around him sort of the manual way. Sometimes you can take a very tight turn around this corner. It depends on whether or not his position is the same. It's one of those things you kind of have to sort of... that one you can't really see around the corner ahead of time, so you just kind of have to bet. It's like, do you want to guess on whether or not he's close to the door or not? That is a decision that you get to make.
And again, that's going to be more or less just getting the feel for it.
Yeah. It's a bet. Like, going around is a little slower, but it's more consistent, whereas taking it tight saves time, but you're betting on him not being in the way.
Yeah.
Pick up this key before you leave. That will take us, and now we need to go to the antique shop that the key opens. A lot of this run I am saying that you need to get the feel, which is like not very helpful for a tutorial thing, I know, but that's what happens when a game is so highly... It's very random in the minutia, is the problem.
Yeah. And from what I'm seeing and what you've said, this kind of feels like a very easy game to learn route-wise. So it's more of you'll get the like you can have the overall idea, and then as you learn it, you'll learn more what works for you, and that's how you'll get the hang of it. Because
the broad strokes are very, very easy to pick up. This is like, I think this is a game that I think most people could learn in like an afternoon. In terms of a run, you just need to know where to go, what items to collect, what to do, and maybe practice a couple of boss strats. Maybe, if you feel like it. Even the boss strats themselves are not highly complicated, but it can help.
Yeah, and then those are your kind of building blocks to... You get a run done, you have the basics down, and you can work
you can start
on
learning like the
from
tight dodges and like really cutting the corners. Because
Yeah.
survival horror games become a game of frames past a certain point. Any sort of game like this that seems like it has very simple movement tends to come down to a frame game at the top end, and Silent Hill 1 is no exception. So we end up obsessing over these little dodges, you know, like save a fraction of a second on this one, save a fraction of a second on this one. But if you just want to get a run done, it's pretty easy to pick up and play. And I say that, this is a good example of like a difference between trying to finish a run and trying to get a really good run, because I'm going to actually save the game here, because this is the romper out of bounds, which I do not recommend that any beginner actually does, because nobody gets this consistently. It's supposed to be a show for like beginner speedrun tutorials, but I would be remiss to not at least point out that this exists. No one should actually attempt to do this in a beginner speedrun. You need to finish your run. No one gets this consistently. It's really hard. What you gotta do is you gotta run forward, quick turn when you walk out this far, and try and get this guy to knock you through the loading screen. That's too far forward, so that didn't work. You gotta try and get this guy to knock you forward through the loading screen while he's on your back and munching on you. The timing is very particular. You will hear a noise as you go through to confirm that it worked. You gotta sort of walk going into it. That should do it. Yes, that works. See, the munching noise continues into the screen, meaning that's how you know that it worked. Right now, Harry does not have collision. Or rather, I should say he has sort of misplaced collision. What that means is that if you hold forward, you'll just walk through the door. And if I keep walking forward, I would be able to land on the rooftop near the hospital, thus skipping an entire boss fight. I do not recommend you actually do this in a beginner run, because any skip reliant on enemy AI is inherently random. The romper might not behave in such a way that allows you to do that. And I can find my way back in. I found my way back in. And nobody gets that trick consistently. Every time you fail it and have to retry, it costs some time. Sometimes the enemy AI just isn't paying attention to you at all, so you can't do it. This is a thing that you learn when you're sort of at the intermediate to advanced level, because it does save a lot of time. It is a significant amount of time. But for your first runs, when you're just picking up the game, I don't recommend you do this. But I did want to point out that it exists. What you should instead do is sort of the opening route where you actually play the game relatively as intended, relatively. So we just leave normally and proceed up left here. And enter the mall via this broken fence. And know I didn't make that skip look very hard because I got it relatively quickly, but that could have taken several minutes. I got quite lucky. You're totally gonna try that during your first speedrun? I mean, I'm not the police, man. I can't stop you. I just don't recommend it, okay?
Yeah, things like that are, again, like, that was a very cool thing, but that's probably something you don't want to do until you've got at least a dozen runs under your belt.
Yeah,
unless you, like, somehow find the... Yeah. Or you find the miracle setup or something, but that doesn't sound like a thing that's around in this, so...
That was actually a good boss kill. I will do that again to demonstrate what I just did there. I will soft reset. You can soft reset this game by pressing all the shoulder buttons and start and select at the same time, which is convenient because then you can just hit continue, and it should checkpoint just on the boss. Should. So I can explain what I just did there. Take a couple of steps backward, turn slightly to the left, and then when you hear it unburrow, immediately run forward left and start aiming, and it should die in about 6 shots. I think that might be 7 because I misplaced it, but that's fine. 7 is fine. And it should die before it is able to reburrow. If you do that successfully, you'll be able to get it before it goes back into the ground, and that saves some time. Once more for the road. Once more for the road. This can take some practice. This is a strat to learn. Back a couple of steps, turn left, wait, hear the noise, run forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, see, it was misplaced there. See, that's what happens if you don't get it quite right. It burrows into the ground again, and you gotta wait for it to come back out. And this all loses time. Not that much time, because it didn't have that much health left, but that loses some time if you don't quite get it right. That was a little too far to one corner. You want to get it, you want to kind of direct it to go all the way over the grate, because it can't go underground if it's passing over the metal bit of the arena. That time I took damage. That won't work at all. That time I did not turn far enough. And thus got hit, which prevented me from, shooting. These are the various ways that this can go slightly wrong. I still think learning this is easier than doing the out of bounds trick, even though I'm not making this look very easy. See, that's too far. Wait a little bit until it comes a little closer. Got it. Just before it went underground there. That will do. The first shot didn't do very much damage because it was too far, but then I noticed and I delayed it until the enemy got a bit closer to do more damage with the remaining shots, and that will just about do it. And that's the boss fight that you'll do if you don't perform the out-of-bounds trick, and that's a lot easier to learn than learning the out-of-bounds trick, and it's way more consistent. Because that will always work if you do it correctly. There's no randomness to that one. The bosses in this game might be the only thing that is, like, pretty canned.
Yeah, that once you, like, got it, that looked very straightforward, so...
I'm less good at it than it used to be because it's not in the route anymore because of the out of bounds. So I think I made it look harder than it is. I got the out of bounds faster than the normal boss game. There you go. I still know how to do it, though. I never forgot. Anyway, keeping light on and off here to try and sort of minimize enemy aggro as we run through. I'm definitely drawing aggro. Turn the corner and stop by... Oh, no, I've turned too early. No, I've turned one street too early. What a fascinating occurrence. Even I'm getting lost. I don't do this route anymore, man. Anyway, keep going. Go straight for a while. It can be hard to navigate these, like, very dark out of, like, areas in Silent Hill. It's not too big a concern. You get the feel for it. Anyway, here's the best store. Just cats. It's the store that's just cats. Get it in frame? Just cats. Yes, just cats. Sorry, there's nothing to do here. I just like that exists.
That's a fantastic building. I approve.
Just cats. I'm wearing a cat on my shirt right now. Minmo. Growing up strong and healthy. This is a Subway advert from Silent Hill 3. This is like one of their, like, faux English advertisements that Team Silent made. I got it on a shirt.
That is wonderful.
Is there any noticeable time to try the out-of-bounds trick, and if it fails to simply continue and fight the boss? Well, if you're doing the out-of-bounds, you're probably somewhat committed to doing the out-of-bounds. You need to fail the out-of-bounds I'd say about 5 times before you start losing time against just doing the boss fight. And that sounds like a lot, but it isn't. it's very easy to miss quite many times in a row, especially if you're not like used to the trick.
Well, and especially if there's a certain amount of RNG involved, like then it boils
there's
down
an
to...
inherent chaos factor to it that you cannot control. Right, so
Yeah.
this boss, immediately run forward, pop one shot. The key thing to know about this boss is that you need to space all of your shots somewhat evenly, because if you just dump fire, your shots will do reduced damage, because it gains sort of like a damage reduction multiplier every time you hit it that gradually wears off over time. The exact mechanics of this fight are unclear and no one's really sure entirely how it works, but all we know is that repeatedly, like rapid firing, that does not work at all. When it flinches like that, it closes its little legs. That's when you know not to shoot it, wait for them to unfurl again before you attack, and you should be able to get it within a certain number of shots. This is where the ammo variance comes in. I recommend an extra box if you're like not confident in your kill on that fight. I'm very confident in it, and if you kill it with enough shots, you have plenty of bullets left over to get through the entire route with no issues. But if you're not confident in that one and that one in particular, that's where the major variance in how ammo usage turns out, because if you shoot too quickly, you can waste shots quite easily. But otherwise, that fight's relatively straightforward. Just shoot and sort of strafe around the arena to avoid getting hit too much. Or some strategies, if you have just full health going in, just stand in a corner and just take all the hits. You can. You do have the health for it. It's brave, but it does work.
And especially since you've shown so many like extra health pickups, like we're not short on health for this.
Yeah, we're definitely not short on health. Intentionally taking the damage there is like an advanced strat, but it's not like that scary to do. I wouldn't necessarily do that if you're a beginner, because how much damage you take in the next section of the game is a little random, as is everything. And I've been saying that a lot, but there are 4 dodges in the sewer part of the game, and whether or not you can get through them successfully, this is pure luck. This is commit to a direction and hope it works, because you cannot see what you're doing ahead of time. Like, I'm going to turn this corner, and I'm just going to hope it works. That's all you can do. Whee! It worked. There's a green dude over there. You see a scratcher. Sometimes they're in the way. Sometimes they're blocking your way, and it's no good. Like this guy, he's blocking my way, and I got hit. That's no good. I can't deal with that, but you can't really do anything about it. You can't see quickly enough to adjust. Just pick a direction and pray. If you get really good, you might be able to start sort of like reacting quick enough to slightly swerve around it, but realistically what happens is you pick a direction and you guess. It's a mix-up. You just gotta guess.
And just always guess right and you'll be fine.
Just always guess right. I'm doing all of this to get a key. I'm gonna check my health real quick. I am low on health. I'm not surprised given the way I've been playing.
And so realistically, like, if you get hit by a dodge or something, or like if you miss a dodge or something, it's not the end of the world. You just keep going. You just missed the dodge.
You just missed the dodge. If you get hit by an enemy in this area, it's not that big a deal. You take some damage, but then you just keep running and you push past them. Like, here's another one that's inconsistent. I'm not getting that. Nope. But again, I got hit. That's fine. You just push past. As long as it doesn't kill you, you just push past. This guy can always be gotten, turn to the right slightly, and then turn to the left. That will always work. That one's truly consistent. Because he's always facing, he's always got his back to you when he spawns in. If he spawns in at all, which sometimes he fails to spawn in entirely. I don't know if that's a bug or not, but sometimes it happens.
That's fantastic. Just sometimes enemies... Is it just that enemy, or are there other enemies that fail to spawn
There are
sometimes?
some enemies that have different spawn patterns at random, but none of them are very important, interestingly. Like, later in a second sewer segment, there's a random variance of what can spawn inside tunnels. It doesn't matter, because none of them spawn anywhere near you. But it's technically different. It could, like, the speedrun could be a lot more complicated. Like, if this enemy spawns, you gotta do it this way, or this enemy spawns, you gotta do it this way. Not really. It's not that important. They're not close enough to do anything to you. Turn your flashlight off here when going through this room, because otherwise the cockroaches get too close. And they can bite you. They can bite your ankles. You don't want that. You gotta get the sense for moving through the dark, which is very difficult to do, because it's a very dark game. You want to release forward on your D-pad when you get to about here-ish. A little too far back. You want to not bonk that door, and the best way to do that is to just completely release movement keys such that you skid to a stop in front of it. But the timing on that is a little tricky. It's not a major time save one way or the other. We pick up a key, 3 enemies spawn around us, so we immediately quick turn and leave.
We want none of that.
None of that. You may notice in this run as well, obviously I'm just avoiding 95% of the enemy encounters. We kill 2 standard enemies in the whole run, otherwise the run's a boss rush. Oh, you don't get anything for engaging in combat, so you just avoid it. This is another dodge where it's a little random. You want to go sort of to the right-ish here, and depending on what the enemy in front of the door is doing, come at it from a sort of very sharply left angle to prevent you from bouncing off the wall and then getting hit. That went pretty well. Sometimes the enemy can move out of the way of the door just immediately, and that makes it much easier because you don't have to do any dodge at all. But that didn't happen, so I had to come at it from a very left angle. When we're in the resort area, keep your light off as you run forward here, because there are rompers in the scene, and rompers are very sensitive to the light. If they detect light anywhere, they immediately home in your position, even if you turn it off immediately. They know where you are, and they will continue to know where you are for the foreseeable future. So don't let them know where you are. Once you get past that sign, you can turn it back on again without worry. And proceed to the port, as we are going to get on a boat. We're not going to ride the boat, but we are going to be on a boat briefly. Skip a cutscene, immediately turn your flashlight off again for the same reason. Turn slightly to the left here, you kind of want to, like a 15-degree kind of angle. We're running forward here, you gotta run forward here for a little bit. Eventually the camera will sort of slightly swerve, you end up on sort of the left side of the screen. Then you want to run straight, while the buildings pass you by in the background. Once you get past that alleyway there, which you can barely see, but it's there, I assure you, now you can turn your flashlight back on so you can see where we're going. When you get to this West Garage sign here, that's when you want to turn in. There is, however, an air screamer dude, a night air screamer. They're slightly stronger. So you want to turn your flashlight on and off intermittently so you achieve a balance of not attracting aggro but can see what you're doing. There may or may not be a dog enemy here. Okay, when the dog enemy spawns, just dodge around it, as one does. That dog can fail to spawn with some degree of frequency. It seems more common on PlayStation 2 for some reason. I'm also not sure why.
That brings up a great question. Are you running on PS2 fastest disk speed?
I am, but it doesn't really make any difference to the run. It also comedically speeds up the dialogue, as you might be able to hear.
Okay. But in terms of actually running the game, it's not really
In terms
significant.
of running the game, the hardware doesn't matter very much. Fast disk speed does speed up load times. That much is true. Here's another health drink if you need it. I'll take a moment here to actually explain version stuff. Silent Hill runs are timed using the in-game timer, which means that the in-game timer removes loads from the equation as a default function. So you can run this game on a PS1. The world record, I believe, is on a PS1, like a regular stock PS1. My best run is on a PS TV, which is this semi-obscure Sony mini console thing that can play downloaded games. My best run is on that. I'm playing this on a Japanese PS2 right now, and all of those consoles can theoretically achieve equivalent speedrun times because the load time difference doesn't matter. So if you have a copy of this game, an American or Japanese one at least, you can run this game at a competitive level regardless of hardware. It's pretty equal in that way. It makes it very accessible. Anyway, on to the dodge. When we leave this room, I'm going to turn our flashlight off. Hold up left as you exit the room. And get up these stairs. This romper at the top of the stairs, depending on where his position, can make a mess of things. He's not making a mess of things because he spawned nowhere near. He can just spawn at the very top of the stairs and immediately start aggroed and jump on you. That's random. That's life. That's Silent Hill 1. But most of the time, you want to keep your flashlight off so you don't even have the chance to aggro him. If you have it on, you'll definitely aggro him. If it's off, you might aggro him, so go with off. I'm keeping it off now because I kept it on for too long, which is drawing the attention of flying dude over there. What fun. As I navigate this set of stairs, you want to sort of use the walk key to take a tighter turn around those stairs when you get to the bottom of them. It's learning sharper movement that will come as you practice. Is how you go. I'm still hearing flapping. I'm still drawing aggro, so flashlight goes off again. Get to the top of these stairs and enter. Alright, so spiral staircase with tank controls. What a good idea this was. Every so often you want to hold your walk key down to sort of readjust Harry's angle, because if you keep running, eventually he'll run into a wall as you're going up. When you reach the top, hold down your left strafe button, which is L1, and start tapping right on your D-pad, such that when you skip the cutscene, immediately you'll strafe back down the stairs. Then you just need to do what you did again, but holding up right instead of up left. With sometimes hitting the walk button to take sharper turns, that you don't run into the walls of the staircase as you descend them. That movement looks really clunky, and it is, but that's the fastest way to do it. Tank controls plus spiral staircase equals Y. There is no diagonal movement. Theoretically, you could strafe all the way down the stairs. In practice, good luck. No one's done it. People get stuck.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like an easy thing to be able to achieve.
It's a TAS thing. Imagine TAS movement in a game with tank controls. Silent Hill 1 movement's weird. It's a weird game to control among the game of, like, tank control games. Because you walk with momentum. There is a commitment to your running direction.
Yeah.
It can be difficult to get the feel for. I've known people who have ran Resident Evil games who bounce off learning this run because the tank controls are so weird. And that's understandable, but that's why I try and emphasize it when I'm getting people into it. It's like, it controls a bit strangely, so like, be ready for that. Because Resident Evil is very tight, it's very snappy. Silent Hill 1 is not snappy. It's very labored, actually. So for this dodge, turn your flashlight off and run to the right of the room. This should basically always work, and this is where enemy spawns become random in a way that still doesn't manage to impact the run. As we turn right around this tunnel, there will probably be a green dude in the center of the room. Probably. It's a red dude. Hi. You just keep to the left, and that's no problem. There could be a green dude around this tunnel. There's a green dude around this tunnel. I did that. I avoided him by turning more to the right. It's a little trick you learn, known as getting out of the way. An enemy can spawn in this tunnel as well. If he does, turn to the right and walk around him. Alright, I'm going to stop here before I enter this room, because there's a limited amount of time going in here to execute the skip, and I want to explain it first. We're going to walk into the amusement park, walk forward, and use this item from the menu. The red liquid, as it's called in the English version. I mean, that is also just red liquid in Japanese, but whatever, like this item, this one. We're going to use it on a ghost baby. It's a little hard to see because it's like a silhouette of a child. This will cause a glitch to happen that skips the entire area and at least one boss fight. This glitch only works on, like, the first version of the game. So every Japanese copy this will work on, and most American copies this will work on. I don't think it works on, like, later releases of the American version, like Greatest Hits, because there was a patch revision. This bug and another completely unrelated and useless bug got fixed. It also does not work at all on PAL copies of the game. So PAL copies don't work for speedrunning this category because you can't do this, and this saves like a lot of time. So now I will demonstrate the trick. Skip the cutscene. Hold forward here to walk forward. Turn to the right. Turn to the left. There's your ghost baby. Get on top of it and use the item. And this will cause fun things to happen. I'm letting this one play out. This cutscene is skippable, but I'm not going to. This is the fruits of your labor if you manage to land this trick. If you miss this, it is quite punishing and there isn't really a backup for it. I think you just have to sort of do the section normally from that point on. You can still then advance to the boss and use the red liquid on the boss to skip that part of the fight, but you do have to play the rest of the area as intended. So my advice is just don't miss this. It's not particularly difficult, but maybe you'll like overshoot or undershoot or something. You can close the menu if you miss and try again, as long as the baby doesn't like disappear entirely. But you only have so much time to do that. It's not infinite. You do have a window. And it only works on that baby. I don't know why, but it's only that one. It's mistakenly like carrying the boss flag or something like that. I don't know. And once we're done like experiencing a Gadan glitch, we can move on to the final area. That whole, like, model corruption thing happens because the red liquid is used on the wrong enemy. It's funny. I like it.
Is there, like, a save point before that, like, you can go to save or something?
You can save in the boat on the way back out, I guess, but that's, like, at least 40 seconds out.
Yeah.
It is punishing if you miss it, and there's really no reason not to go for it. Like, I would definitely advise beginners go for that one, by contrast, because it is quite easy. And it's fun, moreover.
That cutscene was fantastic.
Alright, so now we're in Nowhere. Nowhere can be very confusing to navigate, even if you've already played the game, because it's sort of a mishmash of various rooms from previous areas in impossible geometry. How did someone figure that out? The red liquid glitch has been known before Silent Hill speedruns really took off. There's like footage of it on YouTube dating back as far as like the early 2000s. Like it's like as old as YouTube itself. Anyway, we get the pliers, we get the screwdriver. Once again, take a tight turn around this corner. That one's less random. You don't have to worry about the nurse being in your way for that, generally speaking. Use the pliers on this faucet. The hitbox for this one can be a little strict, but you want to hit it dead on. Don't hit it from the side. It won't work. It'll be like, you can't use this item here, and then you will be sad. Hold up left coming out. You want to get through this door with the key you have now just obtained. The key of something or other. I don't remember what the key names are to begin with. This puzzle's a red herring. The only thing you need to know is the number of limbs on every image. So this one, it's a bull. So it's 4. It's got 4 limbs. It looks like it's a sign of the zodiac thing. It's not. It's just limbs. You want to touch every single side of this puzzle and input the number of limbs. That's the centaur, so it's 6. It's got 6 limbs. Strafe around the other way. That's 2 dudes. So it's 8. It's got 8 limbs. That's it. That's the puzzle. And it's always the same solution, and you get the Stone of Time. Your run is blessed by the Stone of Time. In this, you need to enter the word alert into the keypad, and again, use the analog stick for faster cursor movement. D-pad is slower, for some reason.
Did that so fast, I didn't even register that you were inputting something. I thought you were just, like, showing the cursor speed again.
No, I was pressing buttons while I was doing it. You don't get, like, a visual feedback for hitting a button. No, that would be too simple. You gotta believe. It does make a little clicking noise when you press a button. While you skip these cutscenes, start holding down your right strafe and gradually sort of evenly tap right D-pad in a kind of rhythm. The reason for this is that when all these cutscenes are over, it's a shame I've got to skip these, you'll gradually strafe towards this door here, and that's the one you want to get through. That's the ideal movement for that. When you enter this room, hold forward for a little bit, and then immediately release so that you stop in front of this clock and can turn to the right and use the Stone of Time. Holding forward for too long there will cause you to overshoot. You don't want that. Do I have a Twitch channel? Yes, I am at twitch.tv/punchy. Normally I wait to the end to do those self-promotion stuff, but someone asked. Aha. If you're really hurting for health again at this late stage of the game, there is a first aid kit in here and also extra ammo. You do not really need these are not part of the standard route, but if you need them, they're there. And the first aid kit in particular will heal you up to like 80% of your health value, so on easy mode, that's plenty of health to play around with yet again. And you've got plenty. There's loads of backup stuff you can do in this run. So from the first floor, you should ascend to the 3rd floor. And enter the left door. The right one is perfectly optional. And again, for this puzzle, the solution is canned. Use the analog stick. There's D-pad movement. Look at how slow D-pad movement is. Look at it, so slow. And look at how slightly quicker... look, it doesn't look that much, but it is faster, I promise. It's not much faster, but it is faster. It makes a difference. It adds up. Get in this room, collect the bird cage key, and we go down to floor 2. And we're going to run forward here, and as soon as we get close enough to this enemy, we're going to hold down our aim and fire keys, fire 2 shots. 2 shots is all you need, and then it's dead. 2 shots will always work there. You're doing well over what the health variance could possibly be for that enemy. The shotgun does tons of damage at point-blank range. Oh, struggling to get around this case. Hey, tank control movement. It's a difficult game to move in. It's difficult.
movement is the boss of this speedrun.
It's the main thing to learn. It's a movement-based run. Like the key, when we exit this room, hold upright, turn towards this new room, hold upright entering this room again, keep holding upright, get through this door, approach this fridge. And in this fridge, we're going to use the ring we picked up earlier, and you need to put the ring on to get the sword. If you don't put the ring on and you take the sword and then try and leave, you instantly die. Try not to forget to do that, because you'll be very sad if you instantly die this deep into the run. As far as I know, that's one of 2 things in the game that can instantly kill you, and the first one doesn't come up. Harry tries to open a pack of jelly beans and completely fails, spilling the beans everywhere, but he does get a key for his trouble, so that's all well and good. It's straight across from here. This particular combination of opening the doors is designed to avoid an invisible enemy in the middle of the room. I'm dancing around it somewhat. So from this room, we're going to turn to the right and run forward. There's an invisible dude just chilling in the middle here. So we're avoiding him. You got to turn off this generator because we need to get a key, but there's an electric current running through the key. All right, so before I enter this room is one of the few dodges in the whole game. In fact, I think it's the only one in the current route where you need to wait slightly when doing it. You need to have some patience. So the way this is done is you turn to the left, count don don, and then run forward. Turning right around. That worked. I avoided invisible enemies in the process. I got slightly stuck on one there, but I didn't get grabbed, and that's the important thing. You need to turn, count in your head like a 2 beats, like that. I always do it don don. I don't know. If I don't say it out loud, it doesn't work. That's how it's always been for me. I gotta say it out loud. We use the screwdriver to unscrew that plate and get the key. That's what we needed to turn the generator off for. Keep your light on as you exit, paradoxically. This will only work if the light is on. Hold upright while leaving, and you can snake your way through these 2 ghostly enemies that you can barely see. Many of the areas in this late game area become populated by enemies you can't really see, which is plenty of fun. Going through this door, keep your flashlight off and keep to the right side of the room to avoid a slightly invisible enemy. And that's the last dodge of the game, actually. The last one is not very difficult. Just keep to the right side and you'll be fine. Exactly 1 Law and Order unit for the timing of that dodge. Yes, don don. And you gotta use all 5 of the random knickknacks you've been picking up throughout this entire segment to open this door. And then we can head to the final boss. And the final boss may seem like it may have some grand strategy, but it's actually very simple. This boss might be one of the easier ones. But there is at least some strategy to be learned for this one. We navigate to the final boss. And while you are skipping this cutscene, start to hold down your walk button and also your aim button. In my case, this results in a bit of an awkward claw motion, but it is what it is. So while you're skipping this cutscene, walk about 3.5 steps. About here. That's too far forward, because it didn't stop. It's continuing to not stop. Can I try that again? I'm going to try that again. You don't want to hit the barrier in front of the enemy. That's what I don't want to do. I'm going too far forward with it. Try again. Try it again. We'll do it right this time. Walk a little forward. About here will do. No, that's still too far forward. Too far forward. That'll do. When the lightning starts to coalesce, begin firing, and you should get the kill in 6 shots. That was precisely 6. And that is the end of the run. That's where the run will stop. So you can hit your time on your splits. That's where time stops for this particular run. But if you're spacing, I'm going to do it again for the sake of sort of demonstrating a thing or two. The reason why we wait for the lightning to coalesce is that you do bonus damage while the lightning is coalescing. If you do it too early, I will demonstrate for the sake of demonstrating. If I start firing immediately, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's just 6, like this, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, too many shots. That's too many shots. That's ridiculous. That only works because I have so much spare ammo to play with. In a normal run that follows sort of the strict ammo route, you would not have enough bullets to be so reckless like that. I mean, but if you have the ammo, you can just fire away. You can just do that. But this is the strategy for when you don't have, a ton of ammo to play with. This is a good position. I'm very close. The lightning coalesces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 shots. 5 shots is very good. The difference between a 5 and a 6 shot, it's possible to get a 4 shot if you're like very close, like almost point blank. You can't get too close, otherwise you bounce off the barrier. And that would be no good. You save a little bit of time if you can get it in less shots, but it's not that big of a deal. Just a little bit of time. And if you're really, really, really struggling to get this down, you can in fact do the ultimate backup strat, which is to just waste 100% of your ammo before you enter the fight and let the cutscenes play out completely, don't skip them, whereupon the boss will immediately die by itself. Because the game has a softlock prevention routine, where if you have no ammo going into the fight will end by itself. Because the boss has like a protective barrier around it, so it can't be hit by melee weapons. So the designers were like, what do we do? They were like, just have it die by itself if the player runs out of ammo. But it's slower to do that on purpose. But it is there. So if you've like really screwed up your ammo route, you can still finish a run.
But you said you had to watch the cutscenes? Like, if you skip them,
yes,
does it just...
If you skip them, there's a timer, you see, that ticks down when you have no ammo. And when the timer expires, then the boss dies. That timer ticks during the cutscenes. So if you wait the cutscenes out, you have less time spent needing to dodge.
Okay.
And that timer also varies by difficulty. If you're playing on hard mode, for some reason, the timer is like 5 minutes. It's way too long. But that is what it is. And that is Silent Hill 1. That is the basic elements of the speedrun. You can skip the credits if you've already completed this particular ending on your save file, but you cannot skip this ending cutscene. It doesn't let you. Where Sybil is alive and slaps you across the face. This is the cutscene you get for doing the red liquid glitch. If you do not do it, then Sybil is not alive, even though, because she's the one that is saved from the demon that we exercised with the red liquid, but we didn't actually use it on her. We used it on a random ghost baby, but it counts as far as the game is concerned. It's good enough. It's good enough if it's good enough for Konami, it's good enough for me.
So that seemed like really easy to pick up. Like, it's a lot of just learning where to go, it seems.
Yeah. The basics of the route of just like knowing where to go and what key items to pick up and the puzzles, that's stuff that's like, you just kind of learn it. There's not much to tutorialize there. You just know you just gradually pick up where to go. It becomes part of the muscle memory. There's only so many ways to say, go here, pick up this, go here, put this into the keypad, etc., etc. That's something you get for yourself with time and practice. And this is the results screen. The total time you get on the results screen, that will be the time that you submit to the leaderboard. That time is minus loads, and it's also minus me like reloading the game to demonstrate certain strats. Funny enough, it still says 0 continues, even though I definitely used lots of continues.
There's a lot of continues there.
Plenty to demonstrate stuff, but as you can see, only 7 enemies in this whole run are killed, and 5 of them are bosses. So you barely need to know how the combat works. You get a bunch of useless statistics. There is a run of this game called 10 Star where you try to max out all of the ranking parameters on this screen. That's a story for another time. It's basically this game's version of 100%. It's some kind of run. It's very difficult. That's Silent Hill 80%. That's more or less everything you need to know. It's a pretty simple run to pick up. If you're new to speedrunning, I especially recommend Silent Hill 1 as a run to pick up because it is quite easy. I hesitate to say that because it sounds like I'm being sort of dismissive of the work that people like me and others have done on this game, but I do think it is quite easy. It's quite an easy run to pick up. Showing my copy, it's nice. Survival horror games in general make a good entry point into speedrunning because the movement is relatively simplistic.
Yeah, and again, like you said, that didn't feel like there was anything complicated about any of the run, really. There was...
No. The one complicated skip is the one I kind of glossed over because I just don't recommend people do it.
Yeah,
it's way too unreliable for a beginner run.
Yeah, that's something you pick up after you've got a grasp of the game.
Once you've got a foundation, then start adding it. Until then, don't like throw run because you'll get frustrated and want to drop the game. When starting to learn a speedrun for the first time, finishing is way more important than doing it right. Way more important. Get a good time. Like, a sort of a whatever time is better than no time. Whereas you'll get frustrated and drop the run if you immediately start trying to do the trick that can gradually lose you minutes if you don't get it. That's no fun. Don't do that to yourself.
As somebody who has done that, yeah, no, you get frustrated and then you just stop, and it's not fun.
You don't gotta start off every speedrun by doing the difficult tricks all the time. You don't gotta. I don't recommend that. But anyway, if you do pick up this game because of this tutorial, thank you very much. I'm glad you took my word for it and thought this sounded like fun. I'm glad you liked it. If you have further questions about the run, the Silent Hill Discord is a good place to ask these questions. We have a specific Silent Hill 1 channel. The questions about the route, about certain dodges, people will be able to instruct you on all kinds of things because we have reams of information about the silly minutiae of this game. I glossed over a ton of minor points because they just are not important for, like, it will be an overwhelming amount of pointless, like, gimmickry for a first-time runner of this game to know, like, exact values on running speed, like strafing left versus right. Like, it differs. It's crazy. There's a lot of little things, and we have all the information. So if you want to know more and improve your game, the Silent Hill Discord is a great place to ask that. And if you want to follow me, I am at twitch.tv/punchy. I presume I'm allowed to do a self-promotional bit at the end of one of these, so I'm doing it. You can find me twitch.tv/punchy. That's where I'm at. Okay. These are always slightly embarrassing for me. I'm not used to them. I will never be used to them. Yeah, that's the tutorial. That's it. I'm good here.
Thank you so much, Punchy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was. I feel like I could pick the run up off of that. So thank you so much for showing that tutorial off. A very thematic run with tomorrow being Halloween, of course.
I will
so
also
that
be
is
on
all...
the Halloween hotfix tomorrow. I'm there too.
So if you liked Punchy's tutorial today, tune in tomorrow.
I will be doing not this game, mind you. I'm doing a completely different tank control survival horror game. I'm doing Galarians. It's a different game. It's a bit like this, except with a murdered psychic child instead of a confused dad. Anyway, off topic. Hope you guys had fun tonight.
I know I did. I hope everybody else watching did as well. So... with that, we've got 2 great tutorials for you today. I hope you liked both of them. I hope it inspires somebody out there to, pick up a run, get into speedrunning. But that is all we have for you tonight. We are going to take a quick break in just a moment here to find a raid target for everybody tonight. Before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody about a few things. So we have the Frost Fatale game and volunteer submissions. Those are going to be open from November 2nd to the 14th. You can go to gamesdonequick.com for more information about that. If you missed out on any of the GDQ Hotfix shows, we have a archive of past shows and runs over at youtube.com/gamesdonequick. And if you're over on YouTube right now watching this, you can come over to twitch.tv/gamesdonequick to check out more of our live shows. Most of the nights they start at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can take a look at our schedule on our website, and you'll get a better idea of when all our shows start. And for those of you here on Twitch right now, I would like to remind you that a lot of the Hotfix programming is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. So if you like the show today, any of the shows we've had today, if you like any of our content, please consider subscribing to help support any of our future broadcasts. We do have a new YouTube channel. It's called GDQ Some of Best Segments. It's on YouTube right now. It's a highlight channel. It's got smaller versions of all of our, obviously, smaller versions. It's highlight reels of all of our shows, and there'll be those for main events as well. You can find that at GDQ Some of Best Segments. Some is spelled S-U-M. And tomorrow we have a lot of Halloween stuff going on, so you can start by tuning in at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, which is going to be PB Precipice, featuring the Blacktastic and Castlevania Circle of the Moon. After that, it'll be It's Dangerous to Go Alone, with co-op runs of Lovers in a Dangerous Spacetime and Goof Troop. And then to end it off, we'll have our yearly Halloween Spooktacular, which is going to be hosted by Ecdysis, and we're going to show off a variety of wide spooky games, which will include Punchy.
Yay!
So that's all we have for tonight. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll find a raid target, and then I hope you'll join us in cheering somebody else on in their speedruns. Have a great night, everybody.